Welcome everybody to another episode of the Monitor Keeping Podcast. I'm Alan here with Kai, and today we got a wonderful guest for you guys, Mike. Mike's Monitors, Mike Stefani. So we're gonna get into some fun topics. Of course, we're gonna touch on Mertens, and we really hope you guys enjoy. But we want to again say thank you to the Morelia Python Radio Network, and you guys need to check out MoreliaPythonRadio.com. Again, they got awesome information there. Whether you're into monitors, pythons, field herping, just the kind of the culture around reptiles right now, check them out. Get on that website. If you want to support us or support any of the podcasts or what the MPR network is doing, go ahead and look at the Patreon. Check out their store they got on there, and check out the other podcasts. Okay, so with that being said, we'll jump right in. How you guys doing?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good.
Man, this is Kai here. Man, thanks you guys for tuning in again. We've got the legend Mike Stefani on today.
I appreciate that. I don't know about that. Okay.
As a living legend, you get to experience just so many guys throughout the years. Some guys they maybe grow apart, but me and Mike have grown together in a sense where he's been someone that I've always looked up to as far as work with the Indicus complex, the rare, the harder stuff, basically things that most people aren't tackling. Mike's doing. So for me growing up, watching him through the forums, now on a normal basis where we talk to each other weekly, possibly even daily. These are like one of the forefathers or like pioneers of the game from when we were young. I think I was like 14 or 15 watching some of his successes just through the forums and really just amazed on what he was able to do. And now 15, 20 years later, I myself am following in some of his footsteps. And so it's great to be able to have Mike on as far as what he's been able to contribute to the whole reptile community, the monitor community, and all that stuff like that. It's great to see guys grow up with this thing and flourish with it. Thanks, Mike, for coming on.
Oh yeah, really no problem. I appreciate you guys having me.
Now Mike.
Yep.
Mike can kind of cover everything because he's doing dwarf monitors. He's done the Indicus before, the peach throats before. He's done tree monitors before, the Salvador complex with Kamingai, white throats. I mean, the list kind of just goes on still. But we're here to talk about Mertens water monitors. A little bit different. Basically, an Australian species, really gorgeous. And back then, before Mike and a couple other breeders really got it cracking on this species, it was kind of hard to find Mertens, but now it's like he's got 1,000 of them.
I put out, let's see, in 2020 I put out 49. 49 babies went out last year. I think I got like 4 or 5 14, 13 egg clutches cooking. I just pulled one out yesterday, as a matter of fact. 13 eggs.
Nice. And
very nice.
How big are your adults? I see, a lot of misinformation, or more so of when I see adults, or maybe they're not even adults, right? They're probably just juveniles in the wild.
Yeah.
But yours are stacking. They're like 4 feet, no?
Yeah, they're right at 4 feet. And my males and females, there's no size difference really. Other than gravid females they're like footballs.
Yeah, man, that's nice. Now, how many total adults do you have?
I have 1.2, and I held back 5. So
wow.
It's actually they're just over they're a year and 3 or 4 months old now, and it's looking like I have 2.3. So that's nice. That's what I'm hoping, anyways.
Nice. And then you chose, and now as far as like their look, they're what these animals look like is they're don't get me wrong. When I say brown, it's not muddled at all. It's
Right.
a really nice brown, and then with a bunch of little stars or little dots everywhere that are multiple different colors. What did you choose with
Well,
as far as what you liked and what you wanted to
well,
maybe hang on to?
my adult male, the pictures don't do him justice. And of course, I'm shooting with a crappy cell phone camera because I'm low tech, but whatever. I do my best. The last ones I posted on Instagram of my holdbacks, those were some good photos. That shows more of their true color. They're more of a olive green, darker green, gray, green brownish color. Their throats are lighter and real yellow on the sides of the throats. And my male, he's heavily flecked with gold, and my females are absent of the gold. So what I did was I held back the babies that I held back were the best of the ones that I hatched, and some of them are their fleckings are not as numerous, and they're getting bigger. That their dots are I wouldn't call them flecking no more. Now I would actually call them dots. Which
Spots.
yeah. In my hopes, I'm hoping I could do a low dot count and a higher dot size. So almost like polka dot. If I could, I remember there was an indicus, a little indicus. It was black and it had yellow dots all over it. And man, that thing was beautiful. So if I could get something similar to that out of these Mertens, I'd be a happy man.
That's what people like. I mean, out of all the stuff, they love big spots, big circles, big whatever. They could be many colors, but the yellow and green spots are big thing for people, especially if they stay and they're adults. Like for example, that that water monitor, the Guru line.
Oh, that's
those big spots with the contrast, right?
Yeah,
people love that.
That's a beautiful.
And same thing with my mangroves. They really like that whole look too. So that's what I'm trying to achieve with the Kai Island, to keep the big spots, basically pass on a high yellow mangrove monitor,
right?
In a sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, now for me, it's those blue lips, man. Those lips.
Blue bars.
Yeah, coming from up here in the Midwest where I'm at as a kid, I would always catch garter snakes. And, I still to this day, I'm a big garter snake guy. I as far as pythons and boas and all that stuff, I'm a colubrid guy. I love I love North American desert rat snakes, and I love all the garter snakes.
Yeah.
And they're
all the good stuff.
The blue painting on their lips, it almost looks like teeth, like a garter snake. It mimics like teeth. So, Mertens, when you look at their face like that, they look pretty, intimidating. I've never been bit by one.
Yeah.
I mean, feeding accident maybe, but just to reach in and pick them up, they don't bite. They're just not prone to bite.
Man, nice.
I could imagine the kind of look they give you. It would just, there's something about that face.
Yeah.
The same thing I love, I think, would just kind of intimidate me a bit,
Yeah.
I saw the ones that I think you sent to JTK here in California.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Man, they're not in person. And I mean, I've seen a couple at the shows. Like they were really big and kind of dirty. You didn't really see them. They were basically brown monitors, right?
Right.
You couldn't really tell that they had any color. But when I saw the juveniles and subadults at Brian and JTK's in Long Beach, man, they were gorgeous. They're just so different.
And those went out to him on the coldest day of the year here in Wisconsin. It was. I was so worried. I see you worrying all the time, Kai. I was really worried about that package. He got it. The heat package was good. And
yeah, it's a struggle out there to get things. I mean, I ship all week and I should be used to it, but I'm really not. I mean, I take care of these monitors and I cherish them, and I really wish they make the whole process, like if I didn't have to ship, I wouldn't, but I kind of have to ship because obviously I just can't make cross-country treks all the time. So, I wish everybody was closer, but, we have to ship and just make sure that bracing ourselves for all the mishaps that have been happening lately. And man, I'm glad everything that you've been sending have been making it. I've had a couple hiccups. Luckily, nothing dead yet. But man, Kimberly's sitting in FedEx for a whole week.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Dude, I'm just as worried for your animals when I see you post that. I'm like, oh man, that ain't good. But I never, over the years, I never had problems like until 2020 when the COVID hit. And, and the only thing that happened during my shipping,
it slowed everything down.
I kept hearing of, maybe, and nothing ever. I never had a hiccup yet, so that's been good.
I heard of a few guys that I know having some, dead animals, but man, it was a little scary. There was a couple weeks where people were just saying, "Hey, don't ship. If you can avoid it, don't ship right now."
Right. I was going through every detail, from me, and then the layover. If you're not within the same state, and you're shipping across the country, there's basically a layover state. And there's only about 2 to 3 locations, and that's Indianapolis and Memphis. Right?
Memphis.
So, they both can be bad. Really depending on which storm comes in, and then how they freak out about it. Right?
Yeah.
Right. But I'm in lucky California, so I don't really get to deal with all those harsh weather. So I shouldn't really be speaking. But snow and all that stuff like that. It's basically slowing everything down.
Yeah.
And we are at the mercy of FedEx, regardless of whatever we try to do, right? I can basically try to pinpoint everything down, make sure the temperatures are all on like 48, 50 degrees and no lower, and then nothing higher than like 80, 80, 90 degrees. And if it is, we have to basically make sure that it's buffered for that heat or cold. But yeah, man, this shipping stuff has been a headache lately. But it's a learning experience that we all need to go through. So, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be as in tune to shipping on how I am now. And now it's like, all right, that's a piece of cake. 40 degrees, that's nothing.
No.
It's when it's 90 degrees, we're not shipping.
Yeah, no. You probably have more of that than I do, because our summer here is only like 3 months, and maybe 2 months of it is like how you guys are, up in the 90s or higher, and it sucks, man. I don't know how you guys do it all the time.
We just basically tell people no until it's a colder day. Yeah.
No, I mean, just personally waking up and walking out the door.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
My little temperature thing says 96 on my computer right now.
It's hot up there. It's hot. And I've actually been having great success with all my monitors, right? And we'll get back to Mike in a second with the MERS, but the cold weather here, so it hasn't been getting more than 80 something, more like 79, and there's a crazy forecast every day, so there's tons of clouds. Basically, it's all humid now, and I actually haven't been going through that hot weather just yet, and everything is breeding. Like, it's just my season's been prolonged by the weather being like this. But let's say if it was already getting to 90s and 95 every day, 100 degrees every day, I think they'd be more stressed than anything,
Definitely. Mine are all the Australian stuff's going still, and it seems a little stressful. The Indo monitors seem okay with it too, but the snakes, man, they they don't like it so much. So I'm being creative with them, but it's definitely, I walk in there some days, and then my main concern is actually the incubator keeping temps down, because if it's 90 ambient across the board in the cages, they actually don't seem too bad as long as it's cooling off at night, I think, which it is. The Australian stuff's running around like, it's their summertime. And it works out for them.
See, do you have air conditioner in the house in the summer, or no?
I do. It's in the warehouse, so I can control it a bit. So except for the days that get over 100, on those days I have to turn stuff off for a little while. Usually between like 3 and 7 o'clock, I have to turn stuff off. But other than that, the air conditioner keeps up well enough. It's just those times when things can get up to like 90 plus degrees. Never over 95. It's right between 90, usually 93 at the hottest, ambient inside the cages. But so that's only been, I think, 2 days so far right now, but we're still got a lot of summer to get through.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking at the, getting the Wi-Fi installed and getting those smart plugs. So just on my phone, I can turn lights off, let the air conditioner run, and then turn them back on come 7 o'clock or whenever I want to turn them on. And
right.
Kind of get high tech with it,
I'm glad you guys can do that. I'm old fashioned. I don't know how to work all. I wish I did actually, but
I still do the same thing too, Mike. Yeah. I'm not like hooked up my Wi-Fi. More so because if the Wi-Fi shuts off, that stuff's not working.
Yeah,
So
right.
I basically have everything in just how it would be. Luckily, I'm home quite often, so I'm not turning on every light manually. I'm not that old school. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
Things are hooked up on timers and they're hooked up on temperature controls, but really that's it. I have everything just on that normal system, and then kind of worked out just like how Alan was mentioning, like at 7 o'clock. For me, that's when it's cooling down, so some lights are actually going on, and so all the stuff that's on an inverted day and night cycle, and that means basically my lights are on at nighttime and they're off during the daytime when it's really hot. And so, if they're on during the daytime, they basically be shutting off all the time, and then they never get to bask.
Right.
So they actually need that full period still.
That's why when we, how me and you go way back, Kai, and even you too, Alan, but through the forums, it's like, I remember when people used to say, oh, well, that guy lives in the desert, or that guy lives in Texas, that guy lives in Florida. It's like, what you guys are talking about right now is blowing my mind, because the way I've always done things up here in the upper Midwest is, I just the way I control my house for my own temperatures, I work my room that way. You know what I'm saying? So like in the summertime, the wife's got it like a morgue in the house. So I actually put on a little space heater down in my room because I'm in the basement, but the ducts are all in my room. So that cold, inadvertently, it cools my room down. So it's kind of like the opposite. So in the summertime, I run a few extra space heaters because of the air conditioner. And in the wintertime, when we got the heat, we heat our house with wood. So we have a wood burning stove. We rarely turn our furnace on. So I might have the space heater on the real cold nights, but at a low setting. But it's crazy. It's a little different, but it's so hard. Like, how it is, Kai. Both of you guys.
Yeah, that's the key. So like right now, anybody that's dealing with extremes from the outside temperature, whether you're going to deal with cold or you're now with cold, you're basically turning on the heater, balancing out that cold that's coming in through, or the draft that's coming in through. But cooling down a very hot room that's just a little bit hotter. Now, if you don't have an AC unit or like a really great ventilation system that's pulling hot air out, then you're going to need to work on that, and that will be something that you're sacrificing and putting in place as an investment to control everything. Yeah. Because if you were to be working against the weather so much, you wouldn't be breeding at all, because things would be either too hot or too cold, and then you'd have your somewhat balance when the weathers are transitioning, but that's only a couple months. If you were to keep it steady, and then you kind of, what I say is be more strict on when temperatures are the certain, I mean, it's really vague to say that, but at wintertime, I'm balancing out with just enough heat, so that way my animals aren't going and kept hot all wintertime. So I'm actually utilizing the wintertime as my cooling time period. And so I'll have a little bit of heat going, but it's still, it's changed now. But let's say when I get into spring and summertime, I'm going to be a little bit more laxed, because the weather is kind of warming, but it's not really, really hot yet.
Right. You see, now up here in where I'm at, that's why the point I was getting at is from region to region. Like if I bring my monitors and I move to California, boy, I'd be lost, man. I wouldn't even know, I mean, I wouldn't know what to do.
Start from scratch, right?
But here,
Yeah.
I know the seasons, I know the weather, and I know how it affects my animals. So it's kind of the opposite for me here. The winter time, I put my room a little hotter just because, like, I'm in the basement, so the ground gets cold, and so I got to up my heaters. And then in the winter,
but you get snow though, so you're at like zero, almost below zero sometimes, right? And so we're not even that cold here,
right?
I think we're still at 40s and 30s. So in a normal household, to get to 60 is not that hard, but when you're at zero, to get to 60 is hard.
Yeah, I use a few space heaters. I use the radiator ones, the plug-in, and those are really good for putting a base temperature in my room. I mean, you can feel my concrete. Well, they're all insulated, but if you felt the walls, even with no insulation on it, in the summer, I mean, in the wintertime, with my supplement heat, it's cooking in my basement,
And that's probably the key to how you have just everything exploding. It's just the fact that you're consistent with what you have going on. You know? And it's not just fluctuating at the mercy of temperatures outside, right? And that's what was going to lead into my next question, because you have so many different species. I think I asked you this before. Do you work with them all differently, or you're just kind of doing plug and play with all the same math work all around? Like, I know monitors, your nesting options are quite the same and stuff like that, but all your animals require different humidity levels, or are you keeping them kind of the same?
No. For the humidity levels, this is like a labor of love for me. When I go in there, I say manually, but I use a hose. I have a sink and everything hooked up, but I manually spray everything down, and I like doing that because I'm in there with them, and I could feel the humidity, if it's too much, if it's not enough. But I noticed with the like my Ackies, the first couple times I caught them breeding, man, I really need to learn them better. I have a female down there right now nesting because I've been keeping a real close eye on them because I lost a couple of clutches. And it's just a matter of I need to learn how to read those. Like, it seems the more tropical species I could read a little bit better than these Audatrias, which it's kind of tough to say too, because the Kingorums, man, those things literally, they throw eggs at me.
Like little rabbits, right? Just always at it.
I just pulled a 5-egg clutch out of there, and these things are, these things are like maybe 9 inches, and it's like 6 eggs was the biggest clutch she ever laid, and it's like, damn, I don't even know where they put them. I mean, they're big and blown up, but when they come out, man, there's no way. But they lay huge clutches. Well, for them, anyways.
Right. And now, as getting to back to the Merns. Now, when your enclosure for the Merns alone, it holds a lot of water. And so that humidity is driven to really high, right?
That's self-evident. That one there, there's no regulating. I never spray it. I moisten the nest box every now and then, but my nest box system is really good. It's a 70-gallon, one of those Laguna tubs, and I have it's a 3-part system. It's a back piece, and then a front piece, and then I have a basking ledge, all Zoopoxy, and it's Zoopoxy over pink insulation foam. So all the heat and the humidity, it just that nest box it's self-regulating. Every now and then I have to add a little bit of water, but it creates its own heat. The heat don't escape, and it literally, I could, depending on how much water I put in there, you could see the water just dripping from the top because of the insulation.
Wow. Very nice.
Yeah.
So that's all it. I didn't realize that's what you're doing was just the Zoopoxy over the pink insulation.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, when you say pink insulation, are we talking about the loose like matte insulation, or are you talking about the board?
Yeah, the board, the Pink Panther
The board.
stuff. Yeah, the board.
Yeah.
And
Okay, I just want to
believe the one I have is only like a half-inch thick.
Nice. And
I just bought some of that stuff to go around my incubator. I bought the inch thick stuff.
Yeah, I heard that.
I like it.
But so the Mertens enclosure, like you said, 300-gallon water feature, humidity. I don't even know what it is. All I know is when you open the glass, it hits you, man. The humidity and the heat, those animals. I'm telling you, my water temperature is 82 degrees. That's the coolest in their cage. So,
wow.
And I have no real places for them, other than being in the water, which they do spend a lot of time in the water. But the other cool ambient temperatures other than the water is probably about 85. And then, where they hang out is literally 95. I have the back wall where my nest box is. There's a ledge way up on top. My females, when they're gravid, they'll go up there and they'll sit. That's just ambient is like 110, and they love it. So I tell people all the time when they ask about Mertens husbandry, and man, I just tell them you keep that shit hot, man. I mean, super hot to where, I mean, you wouldn't think an animal would enjoy that, but man, they suck it up.
Right.
They suck it up.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I would say the sand monitors are the same way. I've tried it. I've messed with their temps a little bit, but they just like it hot. Yeah. And of course I open the door and I'm like, oh man, you guys are just sitting in this. So I've tried to lower the temps a bit and their behavior changes. Yep. They're not as active. So kick the temperatures back up and just let them ride.
Yeah. Well, that was the key to mine. When I had my my original pair were from the UK. That female died at 2 years old, and she was gravid. The nesting I haven't changed, so I don't think it was a nesting issue. I think maybe she was a little young, but she passed away at any rate. Then I got lucky, and I found these two German females from a guy up there by you guys, Bob Rodriguez.
Yeah, Bobby.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. I like that guy.
Man, he was getting rid of those for a long time before I told him to message you, dude.
Yeah,
a long time. Yeah. Like I think he bought them, and at that time, the numbers of Mertens were very low in the U.S. Maybe just a few of them, and the stragglers that were around.
Well, think about this. I got a pair that I got from John, who imported them from the UK. So when my female died, I'm like, oh crap, like you're saying, they were rare back then. Oh, just a few years ago. I was like, man, so where am I going to find more? I was in a panic. And then when I found those, you sent them my way. He kept saying, that's the male, that's the female. We went back and forth for about a week with pictures and videos. And the one I had was obviously a male. I mean, he's hung like he's packing.
Yeah.
So when I'm like, dude, I don't see it. I said, and then he showed me some courtship behavior, which I've actually seen since then. It's not courtship at all. It's just dominance behavior, but it looks exactly like, courting.
Right.
My females mount each other.
Right. And to differentiate that for people listening, it's very, very subtle signs that basically tell you what's what.
Yeah.
If you're getting a lot of little head twitching and, it's kind of back and forth, the female is basically not running away, right? And she's not fighting it. That is much more like courting to be breeding. Mm-hmm. But if it's just straight mounting, slightly biting, and or without any of the sweetness in between or at the very beginning, and what I mean by sweetness is the little tongue flicking, all the little head twitches, all those things are lined up with each other. Now, if they're locking up like just the one time, or it'll basically be sort of like rape, where he's basically just pinning them down and he's and even inserting them. And it can be done also with the female to female and female to male. She'll pin them down and basically make him feel like not a man anymore.
Yeah.
And so, to differentiate those two, that'll basically be very short-lived. And the courting, what would look like courting, would be done right after they've asserted dominance. But if it's continuous and they're still doing all the head twitching and it's quite gentle and they've gone continued day to day, that's much more courting to breeding. So, there's quite a few details, but a lot of people just assume, and even myself, that any type of mounting was directly breeding, which it isn't.
No.
Not at all. So that's what can always throw people off when sexing, and it can throw people off when trying to resell or determine what's what. For me, when people ask me to sex stuff, I just tell them to wait until it lays.
Well, yep. My famous line is, if it looks female, I'm like, that's either a female, and they're like, oh yeah, great. I'm like, but wait a minute, the story ain't over yet. That could be an immature male,
Right?
Because when the male's mature, there ain't no mistaking it. You know what? Yeah. As long as if you know what you're looking for and you have a male and a female, it's obvious. If you don't, if you have like these two female Mertens that I got, I mean, dude, their tail bases were like this when I got them. They were huge. So it was kind of hard to see, hemipenal bulges. So I put those two females in with my male, who was way smaller than those two females. Well, the one that we thought may be a male, he was the bigger of the animals. My male went in as soon as I put those two females in there. He went in for the smaller one. The bigger one came over, and she was, herky jerking her head, and they were sparring. And then my male jumped into the water, and he swam around for a little while. And when he came back up, because he's been a little while without no female, so he jumped back up on the land. And when he did, he found the smaller of the females that I was quite sure was a female. And then this other big Mama Luke, it comes over there, and they're doing they're pretty much, it's almost getting ready to do like a combat. And and then I seen that big, I thought was a man. I wasn't sure. It opened its mouth, and I said, no, that ain't happening. So I took that big one out, and I put it in my under the stairs enclosure. It's kind of like a holding enclosure for separating males during nesting. And so when my original male went to that little female, and he was just all over her, they were courting, and then he locked up with her. And when I seen everything was cool with them, and they were locked up and they were in the water, everything was good, I went over and I looked at that other animal, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, I don't see this as a male. I just don't see it as a male. So my wife's crazy dog lady. So we're real close with our we're with our dog vet. He don't know nothing about reptiles, but he'll let me go use them, So I said, hey,
very nice.
Yeah, real nice. I said, hey, Dr. Chris, can I want to x-ray these? So I x-rayed them, and my male had the hemibaculum bones in there, and the RFDI chip or whatever that's called. So that was pretty cool to see that chip too. And then I x-rayed the one that I knew was a female. It was a female. And then now I'm in the x-ray room. I'm doing a happy dance with that lead thing on. I could barely move. I'm doing a happy dance. I said, oh, would this be great? I put that other one on the slide. Boom, two females. I was, man, I can't even move like that, but I was moonwalking. I was doing all kinds of shit. I was happy. Man,
I love when we go to the vet and they put things together for us. I mean, not even them, the tools that they have put it together for us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's why I'm getting that ultrasound soon. I just got to save up a little bit more for it, and then I can take the guesswork out of everything.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. You put on there, you got to eat lean for a little while because you're buying that thing. And them ramen noodles look great, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Shit, I'd eat.
What was on top? What did you cut up on top of that picture?
It was there's like Asian rolls, right? And it's just like a meat sausage picture, or more like a gyro, right? It's basically grounded up meat, and then it's formed into a gelatin paste, right? And then we just cut that into slices.
Hey, I was all about that.
Yeah, it's like cheap food, you know. Hey man, it's good though.
Sometimes
Yeah, it's
good.
good.
It's good.
It comes in pork or fish or shrimp or yeah. It's the one that I was eating was fish. It was great. It was great though, you know.
Oh, I've had that. I like fish cake,
Yeah,
basically.
it's fish cake, you know, in a
Oh,
roll.
okay.
And you just cut up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
it's
I know
great.
what that is.
So you know that's my budget food for when I need to save for stuff, you know. And
we'll have to do an episode on budget food.
Man, you're still eating
for your
good.
monitor. Yeah, right.
I know what you're talking about. I just had a pizza puff.
God. You know, our animals eat good, but we don't.
Yeah. You know what? I'd be a lot healthier if I ate like my animals. You know, gee,
salmon and shrimp and
quail eggs, the bullets. I can't do that though, man. No way.
No.
Yeah, I was telling Kai right before we started over the chat that it was supposed to be delivered tomorrow. I'm glad it's here today, but like, you know, a lot of money and rodents just chilling on the floor, along with those crickets you saw in the background over here when I was holding them up. It is food day, and I can't, you know, now that I think about it, I need to treat myself a little bit. You know, I'm at that point in my life. I'm an adult. My animals eat good. I need to worry about me just a little bit.
Yeah. Bless you, man.
Hey, thanks.
Allergy seasons. I'm coughing too.
Yeah, it's killing me. I actually can't even be outside right now.
Yeah, I feel bad for you, Kai. When you do all that stuff, I'm like,
I have to be as active as I can. Like, I have to still be active and do everything, you know, hit the road and go to here and there and be outside. And even when I go and catch grasshoppers and stuff like that with Dean, right? And we're actually hunting new species. And he's like, yo, you have to go through this bush. I'm like, yo, what? Just
you got the prime deep with you.
Yeah. You know, one time, I think it was like almost 2 years ago, you know, a crazy grasshopper story, right? We're in the Mojave. It was 105 degrees and, you know, we're just baking. And he tells me there's grasshoppers in this tree and you need to get them, right? And these nimble branches weren't able just to put my ass, like, so I wasn't doing anything, you know? And I basically was just launching rocks into this tree and having katydids and grasshoppers fall out. Yeah, it was crazy, man. It was nuts, you know. And Dean's kind of skinny, so he's not gonna launch no boulders into the sky.
Right.
And so it's kind of like my job, since I'm a little bit more huskier. I'm just tossing these things into the thing and hoping a grasshopper would fall down so I can stop doing this.
That is so funny.
Yeah, man. So I mean, we have
like a switch type stick.
Man, we were so unprepared. When you go through the desert, you basically have to walk with limited equipment. So I got this 3-foot net and a little water bottle. That's it. You know, anything more in the desert, you'd be just carrying so much. Or I mean, that's how I felt.
Well, you got to put a little note in your pocket. Say, my name is Kai Fan. If you find my skeleton,
right.
Yeah, just tell everybody. You know, and I wasn't ever expecting that. And that's kind of how, you know, we got to all the grasshopper stuff. And you know, I can't wait for you guys, your Mike, your monitors to enjoy some of the ones that you're looking to do yourself. I think it'll change your diet a ton. Your necessity for certain things, like for mice and crickets, will be a lot less.
I don't use a whole lot of rodents. I mean, maybe chopped pinkies, and that's only for the smaller, you know, the dad.
Are you using chicks more often?
I use a lot of quail. Yeah, I use a lot of quail and pheasant, and then their eggs.
Yeah, so I think quail's supposed to be very high vitamin A, right?
Yeah, you know what? I really don't know. I just know that they love it and it works good.
Yeah, I use chicks and mice a little bit more as well.
Yeah,
I'm kind of to the point where I've been looking into raising my own quail out here because, you know, keeping them outside year round, it's something that I could do pretty easy.
Make the kids do it.
That's exactly it. So do a little garden area where we can, you know, kind of use some of that, do some compost, and then the quail eggs. Maybe I've been looking at some small varieties of chickens too. that are pretty prolific.
Yeah, you get them little bantams and stuff like that. I believe
Yeah.
they're called, the smaller chicken.
Yeah. Yep. And believe with not only the monitors but the snakes, man, I could really save a lot doing that and probably eat pretty good myself. We could all
hey, from
we could all
farm to
partake.
table.
Yeah, you know
Right.
my son has a lot of ball pythons. He's 16 and he's really into the ball pythons. And sometimes when I don't have rats available, I say give me quail, and they eat it.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, they eat
the picky ball pythons. You hear that, ball python people? You hear that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they should eat anything. You shouldn't restrict them to just mice.
Right.
They should be lizard eaters as well. They should be eating. I mean, there's so many things that they could possibly eat in the wild.
Right.
Yeah. But all right, back to monitors.
Yeah.
I don't know what
especially I don't want to upset nobody. Yeah, let's get off the pythons.
I'm just kidding. So now all right, now back to the variety of species and just the amount of thought that goes into different ones. I'm already not on top of each other and confused, but it can get there if I'm confusing what I need to do with the Kimberleys and what I need to do with my mangroves, although I kind of keep them all similar now. I have mild humidity. I actually don't keep anything too dense, right? They get to go into burrows though, if they need to. And I'll have it spiked a little bit, but my humidity all comes back down to 50, 60, and 70s whenever I spray it, maybe back up a little bit, but
see,
now
I can maintain 50s without spraying. That's just the climate here. You're a lot drier.
Right. I'm super dry.
Right.
And
Same here.
my balance is, if I were to be in a really humid place, then I probably wouldn't have to do it so much. But for me here, I have that ample amount of soil, but without so much spraying. And that's kind of how my monitors like it. To be honest, I kind of keep them in what I would say like a scrubby woodland type look feel,
right?
Rather than, even if they are, mangroves from some dense jungle or shoreline and marsh water and things like that. I'm just keeping them not bone dry. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
The deep in the soil is definitely moist, and the nest bins are definitely moist, and the burrows are definitely moist enough, but the surface just looks dry.
Yeah.
And that's how.
Yeah, well, my Kimberly and my Pilbarensis and my King Gorhams and my Ackies too. My Ackies have 18 inches of sandy soil, so they could get down there no problem. But my the Pilbarensis, the Kimberleys, and the King Gorhams, their surfaces are really dry. They have moist retreats, but not whole cage nesting or whole cage deep substrate like I do for the other species. So I just got my man, you know what? I'm a big Mama Luke. I got my first clutch of Ackie eggs. Okay, I'm digging around like they're coming eye eggs, and I'm gonna pull out this chicken egg. And my son goes, "Oh yeah, Dad, there's eggs right there." So while I was digging, I'm scooping.
They come rolling down.
Yeah, I'm throwing eggs out. So
I never dig like this anymore. I dig like this.
Yeah, I do a little fingertip. When I pulled those King Gorhams out, the first clutch, man, I didn't even know they were there. I did not know they were there, but now I'm much more careful. And thank God, like I said, thank God those things really throw out the eggs. So I just hatched out one leucistic, my 1.2, they're wild type.
Nice.
So
that's a surprise for you, right?
Yeah, I was sitting on, I had to have about 10, 12 eggs, and nothing had hatched yet. And I'm just thinking, man, would this be great? Because, I didn't really know, and I still really don't know the answer to this question, if the leucistic King Gorhams are natural occurring or if this was a bred trait through the hobby over the years. I don't know. Never really got a good straight answer from it. I've heard some people say, "Oh no, there's leucistics in the wild," and then I hear some people say, "No, there's not." So Apparently, I have one of my females or both in my males. Two of them are hats. So
Yeah, and
nice.
That's quite common because what they say about all the Daughtria that are here, the bloodline and stuff like that is
shallow
a
G.
little bit weaker. It's the blood, the pool is small.
Right.
We talked about this with quite a few different species. Alan and I have talked about it with the sand monitors and stuff like that, where they have the tri crosses, and now we have to differentiate the ones that are here are what's what.
Right.
So we basically we still got like it's we have to work with what we got, and that's the best of what we got now.
Yep.
It is the dominant species there. It's not like it's just some crazy hybrid. It is the species and integrated between a couple of different types possibly, but regardless, it's the same complex or the same animal within that complex mixed together.
Right.
We just kind of have to differentiate.
Right. I remember going way back, like after my peach throats and the tree monitors, I had gotten a trio of Flavorufas, and they were beautiful. I just assumed they were pure Flavorufas, and I posted a bunch of pictures. And Croc Doc, Dr. David Kirshner, he said, "Are you sure?" I'm like, I guess you can't really be sure.
I think so.
So yeah. Well, you know what? I just wanted to say, don't bust my bubble, man. Let me believe that. Let me believe it. So like, I'm kind of getting a change of heart on that because Alex, he showed some, and you too, Alan, showed some really nice sand monitors that are probably high percentage of Flavorufas. But those ones that, like yours are really nice. I've seen others that are obvious hybrids. And then that Alex from Sim Container, man, he's got some friggin' beauties.
Yeah.
And you can tell there's a difference. The size when it's born is different.
Yeah.
Argus are born huge compared to now the back pattern. There's much more matrix and cream and all that stuff like that on the Flavy, and the Argus is just a bit different, a little bit more darker green, yellow spots. And there's
the big trait that I like with the full Flavorufas is the yellow end of the tail.
Yeah,
and red eyes, man. It blows me away. They're beautiful.
Yeah,
and again,
that is what I'm going for.
Yeah, well, we could talk, but like you said, Kai, I'm right now. I mean, I gotta make sure the old lady ain't listening. I took up another piece of the basement now, so now I started out with like a third of the basement. I think I'm at a half now. So, but that's it. I can't take no more.
We'll wait till everything is actually flourishing. Right now, half of your stuff is in infancy.
Yeah.
But let's say if everything hooked up, there'd be no space.
Well, going back to the old days when the breedings, they happened. They were kind of sporadic, and I was a younger man. I was working plus doing this. And my family, I raised 8 kids, so we needed money. So when I had babies and people, offered me money, I sold, my hatchlings. But now I'm not in that position anymore. So as soon as these Mertens started kicking ass like that, I built a bunch of raise up cages. So now I'm not pressured if, and they're a lot of money. But you know what? They're a lot of money, but that's a great animal. It's if you keep them properly, man, they're just so interesting, so cool to watch. And you know what? If you're into it and you know what you're getting, you're going to pony up the money, and you're going to pony up the money for a nice enclosure. And trust me, when you put those things in a nice enclosure with a great water feature where you can watch, I mean, even if you don't watch them under the water, it's nice to watch them because they do so much stuff underwater. Man, nobody who's bought my babies and listened to my advice on building a nice water feature like that has ever said, "Oh, these things." No, everybody loves them. I mean, what's not to love when you take a quail egg and you hold it up over the water and the thing's going like Flipper coming up out of the water. I mean, there's
It's like a shark.
Yeah, it's just they're a lot of fun.
The people I talk to, myself included, there's so many people out there that absolutely love Mertens, and it's that one deterrent is the water feature. And I say it's a good thing actually, because we don't want to keep an animal like that in substandard conditions. But that dream, I think, for a lot of people, is to have that huge enclosure, that immaculate water feature where you can see your animal just, displaying those behaviors. I mean, you're right in the sense, like, what is better than that?
Yeah, Mertens are
that's
hard
awesome
to beat if you do them right.
Mm-hmm.
So much action.
Now, see, I hate water. I hate moving water. I like spraying water and then have water evaporate.
Yeah,
that's my favorite. So, but in the future, if there's not more people doing Mertens and getting on board, we could end up in that same familiar space where it's like, where'd they all go? Oh, there's one on this side of the country and one on that side of the country.
Well, you want to know something? Where you guys live, if you like Kai, that I don't know if that was your parents' house with the pond out in the yard where you used to have the college kids come and clean up.
Oh yeah, that was actually a whole camp. So what I did is I used to volunteer at my old campus, right, and where I went to high school. And basically, I took care of that pond even when I was going to school, right? I was just, turtles were going in there that I helped rehome, and they were, they ended up at my feet. I basically turned it into a whole sanctuary.
Yeah. Well, if you were able to put a screen house over that and release some Mertens in there,
I thought about that a million times.
I think
they never let
great.
I even told them, I was like, I can bring my animals here and have an outdoor setting. She's like, yeah, until one of the kids put their fingers in the cage and gets bit.
Right.
Yeah. Feeding time. That's a danger. Feeding time with the Mertens. Yeah. Other than that, they don't. I mean, they might hiss and tail whip you if they're pissed off, but they don't bite, man. They're real reluctant to bite.
If things go well over the next few years, it is something that Mertens or something that
if someone came and did my back of my head. For me, if someone came and hooked up my plumbing in my enclosure for me, had the thing already worked out where I can just use a power head and have water sucked out into the street, right? And then I can just hose it right back in. I'll do it.
Well,
but see, if I'm shoveling buckets,
my whole life, I've fish. I've always been a big part of what I do. I always like cichlids and community fish tanks, so I'm real familiar with that. So I wasn't intimidated by what I wanted to do with the Mertens, and then I started with some Eheim filters, which were kind of a pain in the ass, not so much being fouled out by waste and fecal matter, but more like from the sand and stuff like that. So my wife, she owns a tropical fish wholesaler. They sell tropical fish to all the pet shops in the area, and they have dry goods and stuff. And a company called Owasi came from Europe. They've been in Europe for, I don't know, about 30 years or so. And when they came, I was talking to the guy, and he's like, oh, that's really cool. Because I have a decent sized presence on social media, he said, if I give you a bunch of stuff, will you push my product? I'm like, if your product is good, I will. So I started talking to him about his product, and being a turtle guy, everything, to heat water with a fish tank heater with turtles or Mertens, that glass, they make them titanium now, but the glass heaters from back in the day, man, they break them. You reach your hand in there, you're getting jolted. You're worried about your animals. Okay, so in my head, I always said, if somebody could make a canister filter with a heater in it, and I wouldn't have to put a heater in the water with my animals, this would be great. This guy tells me, he goes, oh, we do that. I'm like, no, really? He goes, yeah. And the problem with the Eheim is okay, every month I'd have to break down that whole filter, clean that whole stinking thing out. And now the Oasis,
I quit.
yeah, well, no, I loved them too much to quit, but it was a pain in the butt. So he told me, he goes, oh, well, we have a Biomaster filter that has a pre-filter on it. So literally, rather than taking out from underneath because everything's hidden underneath my enclosures, so you can't see none of the plumbing or anything. So rather than taking this whole giant, I mean, they're big. They're probably 8 pounds full of water. Bringing it to the sink, rinsing all that stinky stuff out. Now what I do is once every 2 weeks, there's 2 switches. You flip one switch off, it cuts the water off. You flip the other switch, and then you pull the pre-filter out, and it has 6 little sponges on it. Take those to the sink. It's like holding a can of beer. Take it to the sink, rinse it all out, put it back in there. I have not cleaned these filters 100% in a year. So maybe once a year I
like that.
Yeah, no, like you say, the technology is advancing and everything. I'm not really in, I don't really do too much with all the technology, but what they've done with their filters, man, it makes it this is easy. It's not, and like you were saying about Powerhead pumping it out to the street. So I told him, I was talking to him and I'm like, I use a shop vac to get some of the bedding or nesting material off of the bottom because it made the water real cloudy. He goes, no problem. He goes, I'll have you something here next week. So he sends me, it's called the Oasis PondaVac 3. And what this is, it's like a shop vac, but it's a 2-stage pump. So it draws water in, and then when this one fills up, it expels water while this one draws. So it's bump, 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 bump. Constant. No emptying it, no turning it off and emptying the bucket. It's so nice. It's so easy. So, when you are thinking about this stuff, look into the Oasis products. Just Google them up or whatever. Man, you'd love their products for, just about anything, really. Fish.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening, that's going to be getting into, possible water features, because, me and Alan, we always support like the simplicity cages because most of our cages aren't fully decked out like how Mike's are. But, if you want to get into that, this would be something where it'll hook things up for the rest of your cage, because you can have all the great water features and all that stuff all you want, and it'll look really pretty, but if it doesn't function and flow really well, that'll just all be a disaster.
Right. And with that said, like my peach throats and my coming eye, the way they crap in their water, not even these Oasis filters would work with them, because they would overload it. Biologically, they would overload it, in a couple of days. So for those guys, it's drain, rinse, and fill. That's the easiest way.
Right. That's what I do still.
Yeah.
For me, I think where my head goes, and this is just daydreaming stuff, but instead of trying to do Mertens, if I ever got into it inside, because at the warehouse right now, I have no real way to drain it. I would almost have to have a drain installed, and it's not my property. It would be a mess. Plant
the garden for Kai with lettuce, and then pump the water into that.
Right.
2 birds with 1 stone. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, but at the house, doing something like it would basically be an outdoor area where I would almost establish. I mean, it would be an outdoor greenhouse, but with the idea that Mertens are going to be kept in there.
Yep.
And it would be a year-round thing. And if they couldn't utilize it during some times of the winter, I would just provide them a hot box, something to that effect. The water temperature might be too cold for that time of the year, but then as soon as we kick off into spring again, get back to it. And I would love an area that's kind of a mixture of a greenhouse with Mertens, but to also have the kind of water volume, I guess, the amount of water in there outdoors, because I would have the space there, that maybe I could implement some different ideas into how I clean the water or filter the water, just because it's so much more water than I could do inside.
Well,
but
just like anything else, the more volume you have, water, dirt, anything, just everything is easier. It takes longer for things to go bad and break down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if, like, I used to live in Florida and I had a 10,000 gallon pool, everything was all automated. It ran on timers and it would back rinse itself. I'm telling you, you know
what's crazy, like in like how you're just saying, right? In my when I used to go to the pond, I used to take my monitors there, and the thing is that, like how he's mentioning, when my monitor would take a crap in this big pond and I would just let it, right, all the bluegill, all the small fish were basically eating it. It's gone in 2 minutes. All the fecal matter has disappeared, and then what's left is just small remnants that is no longer a really big threat.
And then don't forget, you got snails, crayfish, all that other stuff in there, breaking it all down. Like my Mertens enclosure, I have 9 Denisoni barbs, they're just absolutely beautiful, cool fish. They're like little torpedoes. Actually, they're not little no more. They're about 4 or 5 inches. I have some fire mouse in there, zebra danios, some little upside down catfish. And it all works together. It's a biological, even the water itself is like a bioactive thing, just like a fish tank, So it works out real good.
Now, it's other ideas, because I have thought about this. Like I said, it's a daydream of mine for specifically Mertens, and I have no background in water. Any background in water, all things water. So would you, in that situation, could I almost put like a some type of grid in the water at a certain level, so that I have a foot or two space that I could put and keep safe other types of fish that would help break down or treat the water themselves kind of bioactively? And the purpose of that, basically that mesh layer, hardware cloth or whatever that I could actually submerge, would be to prevent the Mertens from getting down to that level of fish or whatever I would use. Is this making any sense?
It makes sense. And trust me, when I first built this cage, I love fish. I love cichlids. And then these Denisoni barbs is a species I never kept. But when I seen them, I was like, shit, I got to get me some of them. And then my wife, she sells them. So I figured they're very expensive fish. I mean, if you could think of a freshwater fish, the ones the size I have now, wholesale for about 90 each, and I have 9 of them in there. Started with a dozen.
That's the fish with the little proboscis, right?
Yeah, they're beautiful, and they just swim around like torpedoes. But I was worried that they were going to eat all my fish, and as long as you keep them kind of well fed, they're not going for, those Denisoni barbs and a fire mouse. They're not stupid fish. They're not, they get preyed upon in the wild. Now, the zebra danios that I put in there, they're surface dwellers. So in my Mertens water feature, I have one shelf that's probably 4 or 5 inches that's underwater, so they don't have to deeply swim. They can rest. And, man, it is so cool to watch these things. Like I'm telling you about Mertens. What they'll do is they'll go on that shelf and they'll curl their tail around, and then their head is over here. And when they trap all the zebra danio here, they just go boom, boom.
Yeah.
Thank God the zebra danios are only $0.10 a piece, because I got to replace them all the time.
When I was raising that reminds me, when I was raising a Nile monitor as like one of my first monitors ever, right? I was volunteering at a pet store, and I had to tame it. And we're just feeding this thing in a big tub, like a kiddie pond, right? And we just throw in goldfish. And I would watch this, just like what you're describing. I'd watch this monitor lizard use its tail and basically create a little pond where the tail has now been a barrier,
right?
And the fish are trapped there. And then all he does is just move his head, swaying in within that circle, and grabs the fish as they tap its nose.
Loving this. Yeah. I've never even heard of this behavior before. So right now you guys are blowing my mind.
That's behavior. I've gotten so much different behaviors from my Mertens photographing under the water because of my window and stuff. That's one that's one behavior I haven't recorded yet, but I'll get it. I'll get it on film. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We don't always get to see stuff like that. We get to see digging, and we got to see like when people show the tree monitor reaching into a pipe and grabbing food, behaviors like that. But you never get to see. We get to see charge and grab and sure, like some Komodo grabbing some monkey or whatever.
Right. You don't see much finesse.
That's right. Yeah, but we don't get to see the little intelligence that are so subtle like that all the time.
And when you think about that too, that's a learned behavior that they've perfected over the years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's embedded.
It's embedded.
It's instinctual,
and that's why I say to people, don't cheat yourself and don't cheat your Mertens. Give them a nice water feature. Offer them fish in there. When my babies hatch, I put them in their raise up cage, and I get I ghost shrimps. They're like the clear shrimps.
Yeah,
I throw them in there, and they just go crazy. And these things, I mean, as a human, you could barely see them, but they smell them out with their tongue, and they just that foraging and hunting behaviors. It's so cool because those I start my Mertens off real simple. I keep them in a 40 breeder Exoterra. And then I'll just I'll take one cork bark that goes from one side to the other. I drill 1-inch holes in there so I could keep my eye on them. They feel secure, but I could still, keep my eye on their health and stuff. And then one piece of cork bark in the water where they can kind of get in and out. And those ghost shrimps will go in the little crevices of the cork bark. And man, you can't see them. And I'm looking at my baby Mertens, and they're just, they got their nose sticking in there, and I'm like, man, he's after something, and then they'll pop his head up because they won't eat underwater. They always pull themselves up. So like that one video where they're eating the krill, they'll grab the krill, and then the water's here, and they just come out like this until they swallow it, and then they go back underwater. It's crazy.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
man.
There's a guy out here still. I think I've talked to Kai about him. Actually, Mike, he was back on the forums. Ben Aller.
You remember him? I remember Ben. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Ben, he's used to breed monitors. I don't know if he's still into it, but he did some good work with Doom Rules. I mean, to multiple generations, Doom Rule monitors.
He was killing Doom Rules.
Oh yeah. But he, as far as I know, he's still doing like kind of the zoo enclosures and different
Zoo
places.
Fabrications is the company.
What is
right?
Zoo Fab.
Yeah.
Zoo Fab. So and holding on to that, knowing that he's still close by, I'm like I said, it's a daydream, but to have that huge water features, just that huge amount of water in that outdoor greenhouse setting. And then to be able to kind of put some like, how the mangrove trees grow and have that exposed roots growing into the water.
Like Mike now offers the material, right? But dude, okay. So what it is you're gonna carve your foam, and it's crazy how they make this thing, right? Because I've actually been studying this myself on making mangrove tree myself, obviously, because I'm a mangrove guy. But I obviously always wanted to have a mangrove set. Like an actual mangrove setup in my enclosure, but that's never going to be there until I make it fake,
Right.
I'm trying to learn how to do it. And Dustin Royal,
I got all kinds. Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, he's great. And so what I've learned is he's using pool strings, or they're the
noodle.
They're the styrofoam pool noodles.
Pool noodles?
Yeah. And
the pool.
And that's it. So you've got your foam cut out as your trunk. And then the pool noodle is along the lines, and then it's basically covered with your Zoopoxy or whatever you're applying.
There's also a product on the market you can get at any hardware store. It's called Backer Rod. It's for like filling in gaps around windows and stuff. It's and you can get it all different sizes, really small, so you can make roots of different sizes and really make it look like a mangrove tree where they could get in and out of all that crevices and stuff.
Oh man!
It's just a matter of your imagination, If you got the thinking in your
carving it and then applying it, but Mike offers all that stuff.
And the stuff I offer is really cheap, and it's Polygems Epoxy. It's great stuff. I'm a concrete guy. I work concrete my whole life, And I know what's in concrete. There's lime, there's lye, there's all kinds of not good stuff for the environment and your animals and fish, plants. So when I found out about this Polygems Epoxy, Steve Sandin turned me onto it, and totally non-toxic once it's cured, hard as a rock. It's beautiful stuff. And like I said, you can use stamps to texture it or carve it. I always carve it with a little scrape of wood I've found.
People use sponges to add texture to the wall.
Sponges to add texture. And I went out and I spent $40 on this sculpting kit. All these cool little things. And in the Polygem, when you're working with Polygem Epoxy, water is your best friend, because as long as your hands are gloved and wet, or your tools are wet, it won't stick. But if it's not, it'll stick to anything. So I bought all these tools, $40. I'm cutting with it. I'm carving. Not real happy with the results. Everything's sticking, and I was like, screw this. And when I just got done building an enclosure, and I had a shard of wood. It almost looked like a feather. It was real long on one end and short. It was like a feather.
You're just pressing into it, huh?
I still have that feather. I still have that shard of wood, and that's my tool. That's my go-to tool. All those money I spent on that crap, I use a scrap piece of wood. It works great.
That's the idea of it, and it's like they say, it's the figment of your imagination, man. If you can,
if you can dream it, you can do it.
Yeah. I want to make like shelves, big mushroom shelves, not the actual ones that come out of the ground, but the ones that are on the tree.
Yeah, I think they're called oyster mushrooms or something.
Yeah. They basically come off like a shelf, and most of what you see now is that same mushroom oyster shell thing, but they have little crested gecko cups in it. It's the very same thing. I want to make one bigger though, out of the whole thing, and just set it. I mean, that'd be really nice. But man, I haven't. You inspire me, because I want to do like more. Obviously, give my monitors more. Right? I'm more hooked up right now because I can't do the stationary settings where if I hook it up on the Epoxy thing, that's gonna stay there. Right now I love the transitioning of materials still. Like, let's say I have to move in the same cage, it's a 4-foot monitor or a 2-foot monitor. The materials and the spacing will be a little bit different, right? And so I love the idea to change it. But there's going to be times when I want to do just a dream enclosure for like a dream species. And even
when you're ready, Kai, I got a big show coming up here in Schaumburg at the end of this month. I'm getting a big load of Polygems Epoxy. So when you're ready and you want to try some, send me your address. I'm sure I have your address. And I'll send you like a quart. You could play with it and try your hand at it.
And the Vox on it is very low, right? I can
there's no Vox at all.
No Vox.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. So for the community that's looking for, using tools like epoxy resin or dry lock that we use, or garage paint, or whatever, pond shield, or there's so many things that possibly can be used, right? We always look for the best and easiest thing. Dry lock has been a popular one just because it kind of is quick appliance and you don't have to do so much. Now, epoxy resin, although it is very, very strong when it's done, man, it's a pain to mix, and the Vox on it are very strong.
Yeah.
So it'll kill you if you did it inside.
Yeah. If you're off, I mean, this Polygems Epoxy, it's more like a putty, and you just go 50-50. So you take part A and part B, make like a baseball size, and mix them. If you're off a little bit, it still cures. But the resin that you're talking about, man, if you screw that up by a little bit, it won't cure. And
it's hard to use when it's really hot. It's like, the room on it, you better have a fan going and exhaust and all that stuff like that, where you're getting that air out if you're doing it inside, and it's better to do outside.
Right.
And even then, the smell is really strong. So, that's the con to that product, even if it's very strong when it's done. This new thing now, cost-wise, I'd say costs roughly the same as mixing epoxy resin, because epoxy is expensive in itself. So with this product, it's safer. It's not cheap because it is a really reliable product, but you're basically getting your money's worth, and it's not dangerous.
Well, when you think about the cost effectiveness and everything,
Yeah.
the Polygems Epoxy is definitely about as good as you can get. It's a lot of work to do it with your hands, and there's no machine that you can mix it with. I've heard you can mix it with like a pizza dough mixer, but you still have to apply it by hand, and
Yeah.
it lasts. My cage is
Well,
going
people
on.
tell me it's fun though.
It is.
Like it's fun to do.
It is
It's
fun.
like being a kid, and you're applying it, and now you're how thick of a layer are you slapping on there?
It's not. I mean, okay, their recommendation is an eighth of an inch, and
Oh, wow.
when you're buying
Monitor
it,
nails.
pardon,
Yeah. For monitor nails.
yeah, when you're buying it, you try to make it a lot thinner. So
Yeah.
I'm getting pretty good with it. I could go like a 1/16 of an inch. Anything more than that, you can't. When you're texturing it and carving it, you'll carve through it, and then you can see the styrofoam or whatever your base is. So you got to put enough to texture it and to carve it. But yeah, you could go a lot thinner than their recommendation.
So what I want to do, because I've looked at it a little bit, and the one thing that's been getting to me is just time, because I got some young kids, and of course the animals.
It's a project.
How old are your
one
kids?
of the things, 6 and 8. Actually, I'm here recording, but it's actually my son's 8th birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, little dude.
Yeah,
but if you go when they're 8 and 10, man, any monkey can mix this stuff. Teach them how to mix it, and then just have them feed it to you.
You know what? They're starting to help out a lot more.
And it's like Play-Doh.
Yeah.
That's what I'll tell them. That's what I'll tell them. But what I imagine, and I've been thinking about this for a while. I've kind of messed with the idea with some other products, but with that Polygem is I want to make, because I use a lot of nest boxes. So I would love to sculpt out and make a termite mound replica,
Yeah.
Using that stuff, and then maybe using some larger like terracotta planter boxes as the base. I don't know. It's just ideas I'm throwing out there.
That's what's nice about the Polygem. You can literally, if you took a balloon and you blew a balloon up, put this Polygem over it, waited for it to harden, pop the balloon, it's gonna stay in that shell. So you can you can line the inside of wooden boxes with it. You could make the PVC type nest boxes and put it on the outside, make it look like a real log. I mean, you're only limited by your imagination and what you're willing to paint it with, and
Right. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, now you're giving me more ideas.
Yeah, you don't need you don't need like you can have like a base and then put the Polygem over it, and if you were inclined enough to remove the base, the Polygem would stay in the form of a box or like you were talking about, a terracotta pot, which a terracotta pot is porous. So when you have moist soil in there, the outside of that pot is going to be moist as well. You're losing a little moisture with that. With the Polygem, on the inside of the box, you take a wet hand and you make it smooth, and you could fill it up with water and it won't leak. And then you texture the outside. So it's great stuff, man. It really is. Like I said, whatever your imagination can, I see your wheels are spinning, dude. Whatever you can think of, you can do.
Yeah. So like Kai has been using
so much.
Yeah. We'll talk soon. But Kai's messing around with this PVC sleeve, right? Where to heat his soil.
I see that.
But so my idea that for this product, or just in general, that I've kind of thought is for like a heat, you basically build a PVC box or a wood box, and you cover it in some type of release agent. And I'm assuming that the Polygem will work in that way, where it will release from that whatever release agent you have on their wax or oil of some sort. So with that, so you have your basic box that you want to, like in my situation, build a replica of a termite mound in. So then with that release agent on there, once it dries, I can pull that out and then insert the actual nest box, which is it would basically have a frame that would match I don't know how to do it. But what I want to do is basically have channels running through there with enough airflow between the Polygem and the container so that I'm getting the look I want on the outside. And that's impervious to like spraying from the outside and stuff. But that I can run maybe like heat cable or another heating element in between those channels and the.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can
I actually that's how my my Pilberensis, when we were talking, Kai, on Facebook, whatever it was, and you came up with that 3D printed little sleeve for putting that thing in there. That's when I told you I was doing that, but with Polygem. So it's Polygem over it. And what I did was when I put it in there, I put my Polygem all in there on top of the heat tape pad, whatever you want to call it. And then before it cured, I just pulled it out. Now I could slide it down in there. And so it's basically the same thing. The only thing you got to worry about is you got to make some type of a top for that channel, because as they're kicking sand and stuff, it'll get in there. And
that's my only drawback so far.
Yeah, but if you're 3D printing that little thing, can't they 3D print like a channel that would go in there?
Yeah, so you still have to have even a 2 millimeter hole or slit to slide it in, right?
Dirt's gonna be
That's the only part. So now here's another thing is that heated even because I have my guys make it where I have roughly, I'd say, a quarter to half an inch space so the heat pad can breathe inside the tube, right, or inside the sleeve, because I just don't want it trapped there. I just basically start a fire.
Right.
You want it to have some breathing room and that room buffers the heat and actually makes it do what it's needed to do. And so with me applying something and closing it completely, it actually scares me a little bit because I need some ventilation there. So I've actually left the slit open.
Right.
Luckily, I don't have any issues with it yet, but I actually haven't even checked. So I should go check and then see
if you made it quite a bit higher than the surface of the dirt.
Right. So I aimed for about, because most of my soils are about 10 to 12 inches. So all of the pieces are 15 inches.
Well, that should be good.
So right. That's what I aim for. So it sticks up above a little bit. I can probably do something where, thinking outside the box here, and thanks, Mike, for giving me these examples. Actually, I have time to think about this thing, because I don't have time to think about everything that I'm doing. Right? It's just as it goes, I'm thinking about it. But what I can do is, it's the thing that hangs on the door at the bottom of the door, and it's basically a rubber sweeper thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can basically put that over the thing so it doesn't allow sand to get in as it's being shoved over there, but there's a little bit of space, holes on the horizontal side of that that little sweeper thing. So it's kind of like having picture like. It's basically a little rubber. It's about the size of a ruler, very flat, and it's maybe there's a higher lip in the back of it, and it's attached to that lip, and it hangs slanted at a 45-degree angle over on top of this.
And it would be flexible, so you could pull it in and out. It wouldn't be locked in.
Right. It'd be a movable. It'd basically be something that is allowing airflow to move out itself.
Well, with all this being said right now, when you look at the reptile community that I've been in my whole life, I've done them all: snakes, birds, fish, spiders, everything. I've always been pretty creative, but when I got into monitors, man, this monitor community, you, Alan, me, lots of other guys, Dustin, Steve Sandin, a lot of other guys, what do they say? necessity is the mother of invention. Well, we've got a lot of necessities with these animals, and they don't really make products for us. So we've all, like your termite mound idea, which I have a story about. Your termite mound idea, great. Your flapper with the channel, great, man. And you know what? It's all usable. And if you actually, like, when you become a millionaire selling them grasshoppers, you can start manufacturing this kind of stuff. Your 3D printers and the technology. I mean, we got so much to offer, not only the reptile community, the world. I mean, think of just these few ideas we shared here tonight. You know, of course, it's all geared towards monitors and animals, but somebody's going to think, oh, wow, I can do that. You know, and whatever, switch it up for a baby crib, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Now, as far as, you know, I really appreciate that. We were really trying to, carry the torch for the younger generation coming in. You know, we don't want to be left without, and the game is changing. It is. Not everybody would agree, but I'd say it's at its best right now. That it's ever been. You know, I think it's gradually growing every year, but man, look at the stuff that we're able to achieve.
If you could,
in America,
if you could think of back in the day, both of you guys on the King Snake forums, I was never stingy with any of my information or data or anything. I don't care. I'm going to share it with everybody. I want people to succeed. I want people to succeed for the animals. But there was a time when a lot of people would not give up their secrets, or, you know,
there's too many animals dying for that now, though. So you gotta get these females to do better than living just a year.
Exactly.
You know, and that's why we try to improve what we're doing. You know, figure out what's working, what doesn't work, and how to apply it. And you know, he goes to say about inventing, and you know. Some of it's all smoke. It's all just a thought, you know. It's just
you got to do it.
Just, oh man, I think this will work, and then you try to apply it on whatever tools you got laying around, and you know that's the beauty of this whole shit.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you know, as far as you growing as a person with your animal,
absolutely. And what's nice too is that, you know, you're helping other people out, and then you never know who the next guy is going to come along and improve on something or tweak it a little bit and change it and just, you know, change the game. I mean, it's been going on for years, but
what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, we're at a stage now where everything's advancing really good and information is being freely shared. So, it's a good time to be in this shit.
Right. I remember.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember, Mike, you sharing that information. I would say actually because of you, you know, I would say I was somewhere around 17, 18 when around that time on the forums. I forget when you came out with that shower stall, but from that point on, you know, everything in my world was cattle troughs.
Yeah.
So everything was in a cattle. If it was a monitor, it was in a cattle trough. And so with that, you know, every time I walked into Home Depot or someplace like that, I'm now looking at the shower like, someone returned that one. I picked that up. How am I gonna fit that on top of my Ford Focus back in the day?
I could turn anything into a cage, you know, like those security stalls.
Yep.
Like what you see at just regular parking stands, right? And they're standing in this little 4x4x8 box.
What a beautiful cage.
That's a cage I can take right now.
Or better yet, forget the shower stall. Show me that box that it came in the back, you know, that storage container.
You remember a guy back in those days? His name was Steve Blaine. He spelled his name Steeve. He was like a Canadian.
Yes.
And he used to always tell me, he used to harp on the shower stalls and they're too expensive, blah, blah, blah. But I got this TV box. He took a TV box, a huge, like from the console TV days, not this flat screen shit.
Yeah.
And he painted it with, I think, probably that resin or fiberglass gel coat, something like that. And he had, he was doing those mountain dragons, and he had like,
I remember that,
cardboard boxes with painted some acrylic or whatever he put on it that's solidified. Right. Hey, whatever works, man. Whatever you can do that works,
That's funny. As soon as I remember the name, but as soon as you said the Mountain Dragons, I was like, oh, I remember that guy.
Yep.
Man, there's a few that I'd love to reach out to from back then, but I've tried to find them, tried to look them up, but seems like some people have disappeared. I had my buddy back in the day, Robert Bushner. He was keeping a couple Peach Throats and some Argus monitors.
I vaguely remember that guy's name because Peach Throats. Yeah.
We went herping down south a couple times and running around being crazy. And I'd love to catch up with him, but I couldn't find him. So anybody that's listening, if you still have any connections to Rob out there, as far as I knew, he was in Southern California, I'm looking for him. So
I was during the COVID, when the COVID first started, I went to a show in NRBC in Missouri, and it was the last day. And this guy comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, Mike." I'm like, I'm terrible with names, man. I'll remember you guys, but I'm terrible with names. He's like, "Hey, Mike." I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going, buddy?" He's like, "Oh, you don't remember me?" I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, I don't." He goes, "Well, my name is Joe from the forums." I'm like, "Joe, come on, there's more than one Joe."
Yeah.
So I'm like, and then he goes, "You remember my dog Gus?" Because I used to have an English bulldog. He had an English bulldog named Gus, and this thing's jaw looked like a cash register. And I was like, "Holy shit, how you doing?" So that was years. I hadn't seen that guy in years, but he popped up over there in Missouri.
Man, if I could only tell you guys some of the things that have popped up now from stuff in the past that are like I never knew or connected the dots with, maybe we'll have a story time in the future that's just some of this
just talking stuff back and forth, man.
So
the
nest, the termite nest thing. Okay, I had built the shower stall and I had only a pair of Similis, and I always put on those shower stalls. I always put the nest box outside of the enclosure, so it's an external nest box. So on the inside, I had all my branches and everything in there real nice. And I found this at a garage sale, this big fake tree. And I was like, cool, I love it. It looks beautiful. So I didn't want the flower pot it was in, but it had that spray foam. And then they put the branches in there and made it look like a tree. Mm-hmm. So I took it out of the flower pot, and it had.
I know what he's talking about.
It had this
the huge foam in the bottom.
Yeah, it had this huge wad of foam. I'm like, so I couldn't get it out, so I had to cut it. I cut it in half, and it was perfectly flat on one side and domed on the other side. And at the time I was doing research on arboreal termite mounds, and I was like, holy shit, a little bit of tweaking, I can make this look like a termite mound. So I took silicone, brown silicone, and I smeared it over the whole thing. And then I took it almost looked like a bee's nest, but not symmetrical like a bee's nest. So I put the silicone all on it, and then I took large beads of it, and I just kind of made weird higher shapes on it, and I pressed cocoa mulch into it and bored a hole through it so they can squeeze through there and get into the nest box. And when I made my Kimberly rock cage, that little rocky outcropping, that's the entrance to their nest box, that was supposed to be a termite mound. I just couldn't get it right, and I said, screw it, I'm going with the crevice. So I tried, but I just couldn't get it to look right. I'm hard on myself, man.
Oh man, I can do that too. That's why when things are so kind of industrial looking right now, it works for me because I don't have to judge myself.
Well, you know what? I don't get me wrong. I have some cages that are like, from back in the day. I'm old school, so I just remember everybody calling them lowest common denominator. So it was just like, a basking shelf, made out of whatever, plywood. It didn't matter because they don't care. They just want a place where they can get under the lights. So I have some cages that are like that. I tend to use my in-laws live on 187 acres in East Troy, Wisconsin, and they had miles and miles of oak
Mm-hmm.
corral boards, and they're getting older now, so they got rid of all their horses and they dismantled the fences. And I'm like, wow, that's beautiful wood. It was 50 years out in the Wisconsin weather, so it's got lichens on it. It's got a beautiful patina. So I use that for their shelves and stuff, and it looks nice too. But it's not, naturalistic, but it works. Yeah. And I have some that are really naturalistic cages, and then I have others that are just useful.
Yeah,
I try to do the gamut,
Oh, maybe I shouldn't say this here, but I think we have a couple weeks before this episode will come out. But with lumber getting so expensive and everything, you know what I've been eyeballing? Because Kai knows up here, but there's an area, Rancho Cordova. It's a lot of industrial complexes and type of things. So there's pallets everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm about to turn into one of these Pinterest moms with the pallet projects.
Yeah.
And start picking apart the
Well, you remember,
I can build so much out of
you
that.
guys remember the OG Rob Faust?
Yeah.
He makes all kinds of shit out of pallets. He makes like flower boxes and benches and tables.
Yeah,
you can
he makes incubators out of wood.
What's that?
Oh man,
he makes incubators out of wood.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous. It looks like exactly like my hot box, but it's wood and it's gorgeous too. I'm like, man, that's a centerpiece right there. Yeah. So it's Rob Faust is an awesome guy. I talk to him quite regularly.
Yeah.
I always bug his brain on introductions and how to work things, and he's a great guy.
Speaking of that, I here's another shameless plug, but I know you had talked about it, Kai, and Alan. I want to put this out there on the airwaves. I forget the date. It's May of 2022. Rob Faust and Brian Waterloo had this idea, many, many years ago. It never came to fruition. 2022 May, Monitor Fest. It's going to be in Minooka, Illinois. It'll be a long weekend. And man, I know Kai wants to come out for a day, or I don't know how you can do one day. Come on out for the whole weekend.
Come back and feed grasshoppers.
Yeah, that's true. I'm the same way. I can't get away much. So, but he's right. He's close to me. But just like we're having a little think tank right here, and we're coming up with ideas. That's how that weekend's going to be. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah. I like that.
I'm actually willing to go for the day. Like if I can land there in the morning, spend the day. And realistically, to be really good would be to leave at nighttime, but I can leave in the morning.
Yeah.
I just need to be back to my get up, because if I miss a day or two, that's a couple of days later on that it's some issue.
You know what you got to do, Kai? Take it from the old timer here. You got to have some kids, man.
Yeah.
Once they get 8 or 9 years old, you can go for the whole weekend. They'll feed you.
I'll talk to the wife. Maybe I can kick one down, and you just train them for a day, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. I gotta just gotta have some. I mean, it's a lot easier now because we got like the grasshoppers don't escape anymore with the new setup.
Yeah, that's nice.
Things like that, and basically things are all hooked up good. All they have to do is just drop in greens, but I'm a little bit more intricate with it. I pulled out specific sizes. I'm basically shuffling grasshoppers every day.
Yeah.
I feed. To be honest, I feed several times a day, but that's because I heat them and feed them. Where they're running at full capacity without dying, and that's just to keep up with customers.
Right.
If I were to lack on that, and let's say Lynn's got work for 8 hours. I mean, realistically, no one's going to be feeding them for 8 hours, and so that's just something that I'll basically be paying for if I have to make customers wait another week or something like that. Right. So, but to be honest, that's why you see me. You're always seeing me up. I'm basically.
That's why when you said you were going to get back to me in a couple hours, you didn't. I was like, man, I bet you this guy passed out. He's up all night.
Yeah, I got to get to everything and then rest before the podcast, because the podcast is definitely something I want to be sharp for. So
yeah.
I might have to take a week off, a couple days out there, and then unplug everything in the warehouse and road cruise the most southern highway I can get on to go straight back to California and looking for, like you said, those North American rat snakes. I'm gonna look for anything I can find between here and you. That's what I want to do.
You need some time for that, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You need a lot of gas, man.
Yeah.
Oh no, see, I'm gonna be renting that Prius. I'm a battery charged.
Fly in and fly out. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to love traveling because I used to take this Greyhound up and down the coast all the time. But man, me sitting down for a long, I'll feel the pain later on.
Yeah, you know, it's nice to get on an airplane and 2 hours later you're where you need to be, you know.
Yeah, or even an hour or something like that. It's like, all right, I just flew from San Francisco to San Diego in 45 minutes, you know. Yeah, I love that.
Let me just talking about road cruise. I don't even know if you guys can see this. This is probably horrible. Nah, it's going to be too light.
It's too,
I think.
Yeah. Oh, I see it a little bit now. What's that?
Yeah, I'll send it to you guys. I found this. I was working and driving around today. I found this squished cow king snake. Right.
Oh, is that you posted that?
Yeah, it's unreal. It is unreal. So, and then I posted what they normally look like from the same road, same area, and a significant difference between the two. But I was too late, about an hour or two too late, you know.
Somebody ran that over. They should be shot.
I know. So we always dream of finding something a little different, you know, and then you find it squished. It's kind of like, yay, but
too late.
Yeah.
No, but anyways,
getting back to the nest bin thing, I had this. Okay, I see it all the time. It's the sprinkler box cover.
Oh yeah,
but the granite looking one, but it's plastic, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, plastic is not the ideal material we're looking on using, but we can use it as a shell.
Hell yeah,
I think.
Right.
Where if you applied your
Zoopoxy over it,
Zoopoxy on top of it in really thick coating, I mean, it basically becomes a rock.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you just have your already entry port that you're not going to cover. That'll be your, maybe 2, 3, or however your monitor, how big your lizard is, but it'd be a diameter hole, and maybe you have 1 or 2, probably 2, not as an entry hole, but the smaller hole for heat escape.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you're thinking about, it's like opening a can of condensed milk. You're going to open it on 2 sides so that way it properly breathes and it flows through.
Right.
It's just how you're having with heat. You always want to have some type of exhaust capability.
Right.
So that's how I'm thinking about it. And then before I even add the Zoopoxy thing, I was hoping to figure out how to maybe apply little studs or even screw in little nails, and then channel heat cable maybe around the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if I'm able to just apply the Zoopoxy on top of the wire. I would have to have a.
You could. The only thing, if you're going to do that, is you got to have a thermostat. You don't want that running full out.
Right.
I learned the hard way with my merge cage.
Like 90.
Yeah, even with my merge cage, I put a cane heat mat, which I've used cane heat mats forever. As a matter of fact, I have some that are over 30 years old, and I like them because they don't get up to the temperatures of these new ones. I put a new one on the side of my Mertens box, and it ran for a year, never had any problems. Then I'm down there one day, I'm waiting for a female to nest, so I'm really focused on the nest box, and I'm smelling like candle wax. I'm like, man, sometimes I burn a candle in my basement, and when you blow it out, that smell?
Yeah.
I'm smelling that smell, and I'm like, I blew that candle out hours ago. What's that freaking smell? And I came upstairs, and my monitor room is right below our bedroom, and I started smelling it up in my room. I'm like, holy shit, something ain't right. So I went down there, and I started sniffing around the nest box. Well, I had a new cane heat mat running full out against the tub and the wooden wall of the enclosure. And what it did was, I don't know what those cane heat mats are made out of. It did not melt. It melted my tub. So yeah, so I had to dig it out, and I had this big hole in there. So once I dug it out and she was done nesting, I cut it off to where she couldn't get in there, and then I Zoopoxied over the hole and put a thermostat on it. So I run that at like 95 degrees. So right up against the wall is like 95 degrees, and then it gets cooler out. So
with that's some of my hesitancy. There's a lot of good cage makers out there, and I'm kind of in the position where I'm looking at different options, of course, because I have smaller animals getting bigger. I want to rotate them in. I need more cages, but with the PVC, wood's expensive, and it takes a lot of time. Where working with PVC can be a little easier sometimes, and you don't have to seal it, right? You don't have to put some protective layer on the PVC like you do with wood. But at the same time, I wish there was an option. I've seen a couple, but they're a little more expensive, that has a higher temperature threshold before it starts melting or off-gassing, because yes, PVC works. We can adjust for that by not having the light fixture directly touch PVC, kind of have that insulator in between. But I would feel a lot more comfortable if I knew the plastic itself could handle 300-degree temperatures without, any effect.
Well, with, like you said, with the lumber prices, I just built a bunch of enclosures, and because of the lumber prices, of course, it puts you in a ballpark with PVC sheets. So I checked out the PVC sheets. I'm sticking with wood for the simple fact that even though they're basically the same price, I know it. I know how lights work with it, and it doesn't burn. Yeah. I don't know if PVC, like you said, would off gas, maybe plastic smell. And
what I did is I had a buffer in between my ceramic plate that I'm using as a socket, right, for the bulb, and I basically have a half-inch plywood, very small square that would basically cover the circumference of the ceramic plate, and that would go in between the plate and the PVC, and so it would buffer the
that's
heat.
Another great idea that cage makers ain't doing. You got to make that's why I'm glad I'm kind of hands on, because I mean, like we all understand what you're saying, but try to explain that to a guy who's making cages. He's like, he'd be like, oh man, that's another step, and but we do it because we love it. You know what I mean?
Our cages have to flow.
Right.
I mean, okay. I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody that's making cages, as it's just a learning process, and we all get to a certain level. And we all start somewhere. But there's pretty cages and there are functional cages. Just downright, just right about it. And if I've seen people make a really nice enclosure and not even have a basking spot where it's supposed to be. It's just some ledge off in the corner. It just don't flow. That's just one example. Maybe just like the tracking or the door, or even the lip of the thing. Now, people are they know to have a big lip at the bottom. So, but before, lips were 2 inches, not even a lip.
They were snake cages
all over your floor.
Well, as monitor guys, we know when we take those snake racks and cages and you put some dirt in there, and even if it's not dirt, even for snake guys, they get aspen bedding all in the track. It's a pain in the ass. So you got to have a nice litter dam. But with my lighting on my enclosures, what I do is I use 3/4 inch plywood, and then I use I think it's about 1.5 inch hole saw. I cut a hole and I mount it on top of the wood, because I use the long neck halogen bulbs, and I screw them in there, and you don't see none of the wires or anything. You do see the light bulb, but I haven't burned my house down yet. So
I've been doing
your socket. Your socket is actually on top of the cage, and then you screw the light bulb.
Oh yeah, his is. It's weird. Okay, so basically, if you think about it, as it's coning, the very base before the metal part of the bulb sits in the wood, like
in the wood.
Okay.
It's actually, you picture the hole, right? And then the bulb goes into that, and then it connects into his socket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and
I saw that. I was like, oh wow, okay. But those floodlights don't get hot. They're not like, I think if it was a ceramic bulb, it'd be a different story.
definitely. Yeah. I wouldn't have done it like that with a ceramic heat emitter. No, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
Floodlights,
trusted it.
you can, these floodlights, they're, even though they are, 50, 60, 90 watts, even more, you can grasp them with your hands while they're on because they're not so blistering hot to the touch. And I think that's why it's perfectly fine for your setting there.
Well, what I've noticed with mine, just like you said, when you need to change a light bulb or whatever, and they're still on, whatever you want to, whatever, you unscrew it. The way I mount mine, if you grab that outside ridge of that bulb, because it's like extra thick, that sucker stays hot. But if you take that bulb out, the surface that's throwing light, that's hot.
Yeah.
The part that goes up into my fixture, it has like a reflector type material on it, and that's not nearly as hot as the face of that bulb. My Mertens basking area on that shelf on top of my land area, that's 150. I mean, that's 150, and they will lay there. And unlike the Indicus types, they ain't broken.
Yeah. Mine are 125, 130 max. If it's any higher, they're not going to use it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't see the small guys out, the small Indo monitors out that much in the high heat. They might run through it passing. They might get to like the side of it, but never directly under.
Right. Well, as long as you have a nice ambient temperature of 79 probably minimum, but in the 80s, 82, they're going to bask. They're going to get what they need, and then they're going to scurry off. They're not. You don't want them to sit up under there. If they're sitting up under there for a long period of time, you need to check your ambient temperatures. And if it's too cool, that's how you burn your monitors.
Yeah. Agreed. Which we've seen.
Yeah. Well, it happens.
It's what happens when it's the hot bulb and the cold area. That bulb has to work much harder.
Right.
And that's exactly what it's doing. The beam is much stronger and it's causing those thermal burns. That's one part of it too. I think another thing that I learned using bulbs over the years is me paying attention to the lumens. The lumens on it basically gives you the idea of how strong the light beam is on that bulb. So let's say I can have a Philips floodlight, indoor, outdoor, 45 watt, right? But they can be 550 lumens, 7-something lumens, and 1300 lumens, 1500 lumens, right? Basically, that bulb is still a 45 watt bulb, but it's now a lot larger, and the focus on what it's doing is just crazier. It's just meant for long distance heat and radiate, all that stuff, right? And so, what I would have to do is have much more space for those larger lumens bulbs, like anything that's 1,000 lumens or more. My distance would be like 2 feet or more is easy, without a problem. But most of the bulbs that I'm using now, because most of my cages are only about 2 to 3 feet high, I use 350 and 500, maybe 600 lumens max. And like those BR30s and BR40s, which not a lot of monitor community people are using just yet. We're still in the par 38 stage, but chameleon keepers have been on this for a long time. And they're basically just a bulb that's not burning their animal. And it's still great to use. It's just you have to use it a little bit closer. It is pretty easy to get and all that stuff like that. They're just a soft white.
Well, for my basking lights, I don't rely on them for like ambient lighting at all. I use them strictly for heat. But now, with the increase in technology or whatever, some of these LEDs, man, they are bright. I've always been basking lights and then fluorescents for ambient light to see everything. I was at Costco and they had this thing. It was they called it a faux skylight. So you take these and you'll put them on your roof, and the light comes through it. It looks like sunlight. It's beautiful. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let me try one of these things. So I rigged it up. I put it in my Mertens cage, turned that sucker on. I was like, holy shit. It was like broad daylight. And so I go back to Costco, all gone.
Oh man.
Yeah, I should have bought like 4 of them.
I've been learning about more UV and everything myself, not just since we've had Ryan on to kind of explain things a little bit better for me in layman's terms, because then all that detail for UV and all the different types of UV, what's necessary, what's dangerous, things like that. I just had to learn, I didn't know that there was all these different, specifics that you would need to know.
Yeah.
But those LEDs.
He's on to UV, man. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I talked to him at one of the local shows here. It's called Sewerfest. And he was telling me about the products he's launching. And the only reason I don't use UV
because it works for it, because you've been having it work for you without it, right?
Right, because it works, and it's not like I hear people say, "Oh, it's just because you're too cheap." It's not that at all. It's their marketing scheme in my brain, which I got a little pea brain, but it works against them. Okay, you go buy, I don't even know what they cost because I don't look into them. You buy one of these special UV lights, okay, and by their own marketing standard, they say 18 inches, and and then you gotta it loses its strength, so you got to get it closer and closer until at 6 months you throw it away and go buy a new one. Well, dude, yeah, that's nice, that you got it laid out that way, so I keep buying light bulbs from you, and it's got nothing to do with it. If you're telling me,
so you're actually speaking a lot of truth.
Yeah, because you're telling me if by your own standard, it loses its strength. I don't want that. Now, Ryan,
so that's why I got a UV meter.
Yeah, I know that.
David,
I can't wait to see your findings, because I was talking with Ryan at that show, and he's telling me about the company he's starting with the UV. He's talking about UV tubes that will actually throw UV 3 feet.
Right.
Now that's something I'm interested in. Something that I don't got to worry about, 10 inches away, and then in 3 months I got to get it close. I don't want that. You give me something that I could put 3 feet away and use it for ambient lighting in my cage, use it for ambient lighting, and they get UVB. I'm all for it.
Now I just need smaller watts on a UV bulb. So give me 45 and 50 watts, man. That's what I need right there.
Yeah.
Low wattage.
Ryan's got some stuff coming out. You know what? Maybe I should. I know he's launching pretty soon. What it's that Schwamberg? What is that?
Schwamberg, yeah.
Show Schwamberg. How far off is that?
Oh, that's it's the 18th, 19th, and 20th of this month. So that's okay. That's here.
By the time this airs, I think we'll be good, because I was kind of not saying things till he launched his company. But by the time this airs, we'll be good. He was talking about some good stuff, so we'll have him on again. But yeah, it throws quite a bit, and we're talking for I think some of his stuff is between 5 and 10 watts, and you're talking a massive range of UV.
And they're long-lasting bulbs, so I'm all for it. Yeah. I'm all for that. I'm not all for somebody telling me I'm going to put $50 out of your pocket every 6 months. Now,
with the UV meter, right? So my friend, I'm not just taking information from just anybody.
Right.
There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and I really have to go with. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want him to tell me what I want to hear. It's more so he has a meter, and he uses it often, and he tests different bulbs for birds, for chameleons, for all different types of animals. And essentially, he definitely believes in the UV affecting many different aspects of the animal's life. And so,
absolutely, I'm definitely rooting for him. I would love a nice UV light.
No. What I mean is, but for the saving of money, like how you're saying, save yourself $50, because even though they say and they market you got to change it every 6 to 9 months, some of the bulbs were still great a year or two later.
Yeah.
And it was just a marketing scheme to just get you to buy another
That's what
bulb
I'm
sooner.
saying. By their own marketing scheme, I was out. So
right. And so, to basically put your usage of bulb better, full length usage to figure out when it's really bad and everything like that, I got myself a UV meter. I got it from Josh's Frogs. Hopefully it'll come within a week or so. I got some Arcadia bulbs that are 7% and shade dweller stuff. So they're meant for dense forest, jungle, and basically lower UV needs for the type of animals that I have, which are basically dense jungle monitor lizards. And so they're not just out in the open, say like Flavorufus or sand monitors, which probably a lot more sunlight, right? And so I want to make sure that the UV usage that I'm using for my animals essentially are in the right index, and they're not going to burn my animals' eyes or burn their skin from being UV burned, because that can happen.
Right.
And basically that just leaves a bunch of black specks all over your animal from the burn.
Right. And I'm not knocking any of that, but in the same breath, when you say, okay, take for example, Spencer's, Kimberly Rocks, Pilbaras, any of these animals, okay, especially like a Spencer's, man, that sucker ain't sitting on the surface. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's, people think, it's like that song, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name and all that crap. Well, underground is a whole new habitat. It's a sea of life.
Right.
And they go there to escape extreme UVB exposure, UVA exposure. So it's kind of a balancing act, depending on, like you said, depending on the species. They're not all just sitting out in the sunlight. They, some of it is just too intense, and they flee from it under a rock, under a leaf, under a tree, in the ground, whatever. So, full exposure is not necessarily good either. So
yeah, I guess they have. What I meant was like they have like desert type, and then they have
strength of UV,
like 12 or the strength in UV, right?
And then even only use it for certain hours throughout a day. I mean, because ain't nobody sitting on all day,
Right. I think mine are only on like 10 hours right now that I've just hooked them up. Most of my UV lights come on sooner than the floodlights, and then they go off a little bit sooner as well.
Where I
basically go off from the floodlights.
Where I do use UV, I use it in only a handful of setups, with the rest not using it. But where I do use it, the animals actually have the choice of basking with a heat and UV or with just heat. And unfortunately, they're in the small Indo-dwarf cages for the most part. So I don't get to see them anyway. They, they come do their thing and they're gone by the time I peek my head in there.
What are you talking about? Offenburgi and Timorensis, stuff like that?
Yeah, those guys. So for the most part, it's in there. But you know what really keyed me into actually hearing out Ryan on things was a phone call where I said, hey, there's always been these two camps on UV, and I'm not. As soon as I try to talk about it and get some more information, because I am very critical in the way I think, because if I see, okay, my setup works and what I'm doing works, and I'm not using it here, so I know that is as a proven for me. Tell me something without, the online argument of things that I've been running into. And he goes, this is what got me. He goes, the honest truth is, for the most part, monitors don't need it. And I said, okay, now let's talk. And then he goes into what the added benefits of UVB and UVA to your animal are, and what we don't see, and how, yes, it's been proven, but he's going to show more of it. And for some animals, it's absolutely necessary. But I think we got kind of all of us got put into the iguana reality of things, where it's obvious these animals need it,
right?
But it's not the same across the board, or it's not the same as in it's either yes or no. and when you start talking about a gradient and how you use it and appropriate times to use it, and that I get behind.
I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down there. Like I said, UVA, UVB, that's great. If they had a nice bulb that threw a lot from a distance, and then I would put that on a timer. Like, I don't really know because I don't use it, but in my brain, I'm thinking 2-3 hours and then have it turn off the next day. 3 hours and then having it turn off. Because, like I said, if you keep it burning 12 hours a day, he got no choice but to either sit in it or run away from it. So I would prefer to have these light bulbs like Ryan's talking about. And trust me, I'm a big cheerleader for him. I hope he does this. I hope he can, and I think he will. I really honestly believe he can do this. Like I say, just to give him little shots of it, not all the time, shots of it. You know what I mean? Especially the kind he's talking about.
Just to speak about what Mike's kind of also relating to is, some young keepers that are going to listen to this. What we want you to understand is monitors basically don't bask all day because they shouldn't be. That'd be improper to how they basically normally go throughout the day. If you're spending time sitting there cooking, you're also dehydrating, but you're not hunting and you're not eating. You're just wasting time. And so, if anything, for example, sure, monitors in the wild, they love to morning bask, right, or do some scrupulous basking. But morning basking is very popular, and so you'll see animals come in right as the sun peaks. And so, animals are soaking up the sun, and it may take longer because they're starting at a slightly cooler temperature. It's still warm where they're from, but it's not just like as it's cooking already. So it gradually grows up in temperature, but monitors are really probably only basking for a very short time. Now in captivity, my guys can bask for 20 minutes and get right to going. That's it. Get right to going. So then they're hanging out in the shade. They're hanging out in the other ledges that I made in the 80 and 90 degree mark, or even where it is hot, like 100 degrees, but they're out of the sun and they're out of the light. They're basically not basking. So I see my guys when it's 120 and 130 surface temperature and the ambients are a good 90s and 100 there. They utilize it quick. Sometimes they don't even need to bask. I just start feeding them and then they go take care of the basking for an hour and then they're done. That's it.
When I think so, what I see in a lot of usage is people want the biggest UV bulb, fluorescent tube that can span the most area in their enclosure. And I think that's maybe it's a lot. It's maybe, in my opinion, it's the wrong approach. And like Mike, we said, Kai, we've been talking about is your animals are smart. Okay. If they need it and you give it to them at a certain time of the day, they're going to figure out what time of the day it's going to be on. And don't shortchange your monitor.
Right.
Yeah. Don't shortchange them. Don't shortchange their intelligence because they know when you're going to be in the room and not. And they know when they're going to come out and do their cool stuff and have a party when you're not looking, if they're shy monitors, or when you're going to be in there,
as far as like the spreading the whole light across the entire enclosure, I think it's good to have it in the right spots and, proportionally with some of the enclosure. Like I just don't have it stretched across the whole thing. It's only right where the basking bulbs are mostly. But the rest of the enclosure can get a little bit dark. Now, my cages are mostly painted white. So as the light hits, it just reflects off of everything. And then, it's bright itself. Now, I want to basically not just choose one side of this. I have to utilize this, but still make my monitors comfortable. So essentially what I have is the shelves that I'm using as basking spots and ledges. They basically cover the lamps. And so as the lamps are having their ambient light flow through the cage and the heat flow through the cage, the bottom underneath all that is dark. And so this is where they get to escape all that. The heat is actually it's drastically much cooler just because heat and light doesn't get to there at all. It's just like you closing the blinds, shutting the windows in your room, and having it dark. It's just naturally going to be cooler. And so my animals are utilizing that. Now, I just added these UV lights. Don't get me wrong, I like them, but I don't like how bright they are. Some of them are a little bit too bright, right? I like the shade dweller because it's
are they tubes, Kai, or are they incandescent?
I have both. So this is where I was just getting to. The shade dweller tube that I got from Arcadia. Now these are highly rated bulbs, probably the number one leading UV within the company, the industry currently. I mean, there are a couple others, but this one is highly recommended with just many features in this UV on the UV spectrum for many different reptiles, and the understanding has been put out there. So, I went with this product and these bulbs just because they were highly recommended and for my type of animal. I got the shade dweller, which is an actual UV tube. That one I actually love. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting any shame to that one at all. I'm actually going to get more of those. I bought 2 of the compact one because I thought they were going to be better, but I also liked the fact that I could just screw them into a socket, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to diss them yet until I get my UV meter and I actually measure it. But when I hooked those bulbs in, man, they were so bright. Like, it actually hurts my eyes to just walk in that room right now because I'm not used to the light. And I wonder if my monitors are going to be affected the same way. Now, I've only been having it hooked up the lights for a day or two, so I don't really know just yet on results or anything like that or any type of bad behavior. But I caught one of them right underneath it this morning. So, instead of basking, and I was like, all right, it's not that bad. You're not that, right, like as far as scared of the light or something like that.
Now, is that bulb the one you're talking about right now? Is that throwing heat?
It's a
little bit of heat.
It's a 20-watt bulb as well.
Okay.
So it's the UV on it is quite strong. The UVA on it is quite strong. The UVB on it is 7%. So it should only take the index up to about 2.5-ish. But I think it can get to 3 if you're really close within proximity. Now that when I say these numbers, it's when you get I don't even have it yet, but I've been studying it. So when you get the you basically are going to be, as you're, underneath the bulb trying to measure how strong it is, it'll show you a number on how the strength is, and then you kind of measure it on the chart on what you need for your animal. Say if it's it's a shade dweller or a heavy, dense jungle animal where it's not going to get a lot of light. You're looking at a certain UV index where you want to be, which is 1 and 2.5, something like that. But for animals that are, where they're from, the natural range isn't so covered in dense jungle and there is a lot of exposure, you kind of want to go.
Are you talking about the Ferguson zone? Is that what you're referring to?
That's exactly it. Sorry. So okay. I don't even know what it's called because I'm not even there yet. And so, I just want to be able to be just like that, be able to understand everything that I need to know about using UV right. So I bought the bulb and I thought they were going to be just 100% perfect plug-in, but they're not. So I have to, they plug in and they work well, but the how the light shines, I want to make sure that it's the right, ambient light being used within UV and all that stuff like that, not blinding my monitors, not burning my monitors with over usage of UV or something like that, or too much close exposure. You know what I mean?
Right. That's why with my train of thought with the whole UVA, UVB thing is something that could throw a further distance. You know what I'm saying? Like, and of course, I don't know. You're talking about Arcadias. I know this is all newer stuff. I'm talking the old school UVB that probably wasn't even UVB. You know what I mean? Now look at you. You got the meter, and it's more common for just a regular hobbyist to have a meter and actually check their shit. You know what I mean? And see. So what the way Ryan was describing it to me, that he can, because like my big walk-in enclosure he was using for example, that I could put that up where my fluorescent light is, and it's going to throw UV clean, 3 feet away, 4 feet away. I'm all for that because I say, I would run that for, a few hours and then turn it off, have it turn off with a timer, on, off. You know what I'm saying? Because of the exposure thing. But you talk about going back to the old days with, I remember when I first started, it was like basking temperatures were, 100 and 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 then you'd hear guys like Frank saying, 140, 130. And it's like, well, damn,
why? Test it out. Yeah, we had
but then if you remember, the temperature guns started coming out, and you could actually go outside in the full sun and hit a rock with that thing and realize, oh, that's way over 150 degrees.
The hobby now is so lucky. Yep. You have people making you temp guns, right? And COVID has also spread the fact that people buying their own temperature gun to measure people as they go into their stores and stuff like that. So it's more available to you anywhere now. But before, they weren't. I had to go to Pet Boys and pay $80 for a car temperature gun that measures motors.
Right.
And it would measure someone's motor because you're testing it as you're running it, making sure it's not too hot. And I had to pay $100 every single time. You guys are lucky that you're paying $25.
Yeah, I remember. Right. I remember they looked like almost like a taser gun that the cops had.
And a huge tool.
Yeah. Do you remember when Pro Exotics came out with that little tiny one? It was like
yeah. That was the first one. That was the first one in the hobby, just like that. Where and reliability. Those were good ones. And I myself have always been the gun type of person where it's got to have the whole laser and it's got to have the little chart on it. I'm not too trusty of the little tiny handheld ones. Don't get me wrong. I've tested them, but I'm not cool with the little dinky plastic thing supposed to be measuring temperature.
I think
I need
from
better.
Way back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the original one that I got back in the late 90s, middle 90s, whatever it was I think it was called Raytech. I'm not sure. Don't quote me.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And it was for I worked with a guy, and he was really into those like slot cars and in the remote control cars. And they would, after running it for so long, they would check the bearings because they didn't want to fry their bearings out. I'm like, oh shit, let me, I could probably try that. So I used that. But now, like you say, they're for your forehead. They're for, a cake. They got
anything. I mean, so I use. I make. I'm not gonna even lie. I just make gummies. I make.
I know.
And stuff like that, and I gotta melt stuff down, right? And so when my lady's trying to figure out what temperature it is, I can literally pull out my thing and just hit the bowl. Like, yo, this is what the temperature is. Yeah. We don't need to measure it because we already know. And so just that whole usage and knowing that thing.
Your lady looks at you and says, honey, you're a genius. Make some more gummies. I'll tell you, you talk about gummies. My wife has a girl who works for her, and I used to get high a lot, but I don't really anymore. And she made these cookies, and my daughter was graduating from 8th grade, whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, I'll just eat like a half a cookie. So I started eating half the cookie, and I was watching TV, and before I know it, I'm like, wow, this is the last bite. I ate that cookie. Boy, oh my gosh, I was all over the place, man. I was in the graduation all paranoid, thinking everybody's looking at me.
Yeah, man.
They all know.
They're a total.
I thought I was going to OD on a cookie, man.
Man, the body feel is totally different.
Yeah.
But man, temperature guns is man, these people are so lucky to get so many lines of temperature guns now. And
now you're going with a UV meter, which is great. I'm glad you're doing that because I can't wait to hear the results.
Next is the ultrasound. The ultrasound is next. So I got a lot of guesswork, and sure, some things are evident when I see animal looks like it's going through possible vitellogenesis or, whatever, if she's having follicles, or even if she's got eggs, right? Or even to look at those hemipenal bones that you're looking for, right, when you're x-raying. I can do all this with the ultrasound if I get it. Once I do, I'm basically just saving up for it to buy it at the right time. But I'm always guessing, and I'm just assuming, and I want to take that work out of it where I don't have to do that and really no pinpoint. All right, sure, I'm looking at follicles, and I myself, I'm not totally academically trained on the anatomy of an animal, and I know somewhat, and I've been kind of studying it a little bit on knowing where to look on the body, by the kidney and stuff like that. But I would have to see it on the scan first to then realize, all right, if that's it, if that's not it, hopefully I can see, and then I know when to put in a female.
Right.
That's where the guesswork is taken out for you. All right, she's cycling, and this is the beginning part. Plop them in, and so I'm, when I come to look at my animal signs, and they're showing me these characteristics of all the stages of reproduction, right? I myself am always just like, all right, man, she looks like she can be throwing eggs, but she didn't go through any of the stuff before, so she's probably going through vitellogenesis right now, right? But then she'll get to the part where she's gravid, and then I know she's bloated as heck, but it's not that stage anymore. And now the tails, all this is now easy to read because it all makes sense to me. I've been used to this now.
Right.
But the prior steps, the actual beginning, is the hardest part for me to understand. Where I'm waiting for Croc Doc's David Kirshner's next episode on actually the ovulating part. I still do not understand this till today, even though I'm having great success and all this stuff like that. I'm plugging and playing safely as I could, but to know pinpoint on when it's actually ovulating and when it's going through vitellogenesis, and it's like all these are different, and they're all different stages, right, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah, and so
definitely. Like for example, I know exactly what you're talking about. Just this last over the past 2 weeks now, I put my with the pass through like you just built on your cages. I had my male was doing a lot of nosing into the grid, the cutoff or the pass through, whatever you want to call it, and so I let them in, and they locked up a couple of times, and so I cut him out again. I lured him into his cage and closed the door, and she was blown up, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. She's gravid. It was only a couple of lockups. So, it's been a week, and I'm waiting.
You shot prematurely, right?
Yeah.
Is that what
you're
saying?
Here's how I figured it out. She was all big and swollen, and I thought for sure she was gravid. It took a little, like I said, about a week. So I was just, I had them cut out. I'm waiting for her to nest, and she did a little digging, not much, not like usual, but she started nosing through the cutoff for him. And then they're both like this. I'm like, oh, I probably missed it. So I undid the thing, and I opened the gate, and actually she went into his cage, and they've been copulating for like 2 days now. So she wasn't gravid. So she was probably just cycling, and now she's getting.
That's where it's very tricky for me still. It's not just that I don't see I see my animals all the time. They're very lean, and so it's I try to keep them lean so they are easily to tell when they're bloated, right? And that whole bloating up look. Fat animals, it's just harder to tell, and it's actually dangerous to be breeding too many fat animals. So you want to lean them down a little bit, but it's just really hard for me to differentiate the timing. And I've actually gotten it where I essentially missed, or more so of missed would be late, but I actually shot premature, and then they're going to lock. I mean, not only can they just lock up anytime randomly because the male is going to want to dominate or whatever, right? That's just on any type of occasion. But the male, I think, as the female is going through all these stages, she's just letting off all these smells,
Yep.
and he's gonna try to lock up anytime in between this, right? And that may be why monitors lock up so many times, is because between the beginning, I mean, and is it vitellogenesis and then ovulating, Mike, or is it ovulating and then vitellogenesis?
You know what? I let my monitors tell me. I don't know what. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what's going on in their bodies, but I could tell you that's pretty much. The only thing I separate is my coming eye, and the only reason I separate my coming eye is if I didn't, my male would be too big and fat. He'd steal all her food. But what I mean to say by this is, with your pass through now, of course you're going to get your the ultrasound, and that's great. You'll learn a lot from that. But that simple thing of your little pass through gate, they're going to tell you, like today, or last about a week ago, when they were doing that in the cage, I'm like, shit, I'll bet you I missed. I opened that gate. She went in there, and when she went into his cage, she had this look on her face like, oh, shit, maybe I asked the wrong thing, because he was all over her. And they've been locked up for a couple of days now. And
nice.
And I would have missed. If it wasn't for that pass-through, because my reading her body size.
Yeah. Now, see, same thing with me with my introduction. I call it the reassurance wall, because it's, for me, it's really protecting my pain, and because, dude, I have monitors attacking each other every day, and it's painful because you got to really deal with wounds, and man, I spent the whole last year just treating people's wounds or treating animals' wounds, man, making sure that they were healing up well, antibiotics if they needed it, things like that, silver cream. But that pass through right now. You saw the example videos that I was showing, where I had quite a sequence of videos that I record every single time they showed me something new, right? And so the very new thing it's just speed. At first, it was really jerky, right? Like he's trying to attack her, trying to basically get through the other side, and that's the wrong reading. That you're not trying.
And then it became more controlled,
and so he
had a purpose.
Right. And so he's so crazy, and he was just trying to get to the other side, even biting as she got closer. So I was like, okay, that's not what I want. And people were telling me, you're going to see it. And I was like, bro, what the hell? We'll see what, Yep. And so I kept on paying attention to behavior, and I was like, all right, it's got to be super subtle. I got to pay attention to this. I'm going to sit in the room, watch this stuff on how it's supposed to go. And day by day, they would get used to each other more and more. She would be riding his grill, and I think she was going through the whole thing too, as far as either ovulating or going through vitellogenesis, right? And just the beginning stages of it. And then on another day passing, I can just see him tongue flicking more. His head twitching was a lot more like how it is with just good breeding when it's off. And so that's exactly what I was doing. Is all right, man. This is what I think I'm looking for. He's not biting her through the thing. She's close. He's calm. He's not all sporadic when I'm in there now. And so I just picked him up and just put him at the front of her cage, and he just walked right in, and they did their thing, man. And they've been at it for the last 6 days.
Before you made your pass through, is what I call it. Yeah. Before you made that pass through, you would actually take your male from one cage and put it into the female's cage.
Yeah, I mean, I do a bit more than that. I do soaking, and I play with them together. They just get like a natural feel of each other first, right? Even without the enclosure. So it's like neutral zone, somewhere they haven't claimed. I'll soak them together. I'll play with them together. They'll kind of get a feel of each other. I do certain things that are also very specific, where I'll take fecal matter from each of their cages and swap it, right? So they are used to each other's smell. I'll even smear it on their favorite basking spot or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it is really just manipulating the whole scenario, where she's in the cage, but she's not in the cage. So we kind of have to get used to the smell. And then I'll trade furniture sometimes, things like that. Just to get the smell in there, not to freak them out so much. And so I would do the mutual zoning and all that stuff like that prior. But even then, he would still run and chase her down, and it's because the first introduction, the initial 5-10 an hour one day, but maybe even the week, is frantic as shit. Like they're just, man, he's in my zone. What is he doing here? Like I'm gonna kill him if he gets to the nest bin. And then he's scared. So in defense, he's basically protecting himself as well. And I had to learn all this through letting them do their thing.
And a whole lot of super glue.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of silver cream. I paid thousands of dollars going to the vet and getting medicine and going after time and time again, making sure that they're okay. I've learned how to do things and give injections. Not me, my lady my Lynn back here is responsible for giving my injections to my monitor. She's just as a monitor keeper as me.
Yeah.
And and she's my solid rock. And as far as just hooking things up with how I need them to be on my animals and sacrifice and what I'm trying to put into it to just make it happen for them, it's
Guys,
crazy.
we're getting into some good stuff, but I gotta get to a birthday party.
No worries. It's 2.5 hours. I actually just I thought it was great as well. And don't get me wrong, it's getting late for Mike as well. We're at a great show. We can always do a part 2, and
I would love that, because you're talking about.
I had a whole lot more, because me and Mike and you can cover so much.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
and you guys were just touching on that.
Yeah.
The behavior, the separations, the partitions. That's a whole nother level.
Yeah, I want to talk incubator stuff too, because me and Mike
have
lost a lot in the last year alone. Just the pain and just the learning itself. The things going the distance and then not. But yeah, man. I hope you have a great time at your birthday party.
Yeah.
It's sorry to cut it short, guys. Man, I feel horrible because I know there's those topics floating out there.
Yeah, man, we could do it again. We could go, because we're kind of segueing into a few things that I wanted to talk about with my Mertens. We could get into it again about pheromones and smelling and stuff like that. Like, you got the ultrasound coming, the UV meters, the heat guns. One day they're going to come up with a pheromone meter where we could read the pheromones. So this is going to get better and better. But just when
we'll touch base on episode 2. I don't want to give people any more.
That sounds good.
That way the recording can be great for Eric and everything like that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, Mike, one thing, we love you, man. Thank you.
I love you guys too, man. I just want to say something before we go here. Anybody, I don't care if you got a leopard gecko, man, join US Ark. We need you. These people are coming after us for our animals. And if you think your dogs and cats and birds and fish are safe, when they get done with us, they're coming after everything. Join US Ark. They fight the good fight for us. And again, thank you guys. I really appreciate the time. It's always great talking to you guys. And I'll see you on the forums and stuff. So we'll be in touch.
I'll see you later, man.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Hey, have a great night. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. Take care, guys.
All right. Till next time. Guys, thank you for listening. And again, we're going to wrap it up a little quicker, but go on to that website, MoreliaPythonRadio.com, and check it out. Check out those other podcasts they got available to you. Like Mike said, join US Ark, and check out the Patreon on NPR, and help out if you feel so inclined. So,
all right, you guys have a good one.
All right.
Thank you, guys. God bless, man. Mike. Talk to you later.
All right, see you later, Mike.
Bye now.